Was that Dada? Was that Dada? Oh, yeah, was that Dada? Yeah? Did you get to tell where's Killian?
Oh, where'd you go? Where's Killian? Oh no, did I lose you? Where'd you go, buddy? Oh no, are you hiding? Oh, boo! Hello, there's a Killian. Oh, Killian's always in a good mood. I know, he's well tired, but it is 7 a.m. Monday morning. We're taking old buddy back to Mama. You show everybody your new toys? Oh, you got the Mr. Owl? Yeah. And then we got this little guy. What's he? Oh, who's he? Oh, that's you in the camera. Say hi. Hi. Can you say hi? Hello. Say hi. Say hello, everybody. Thank you for your prayers. I love you. Who we got here? Mr. Owl? Mr. Owl.
You never be normal. You are normal, my man. You're just a little behind. You're gonna walk, you're gonna do everything. An overachiever, my boy. Why is that? Because you're a Vanderhagen. Yeah. You're gonna be somebody.
Oh, you make that do it? I make that a finger move. Yeah. Yeah, I make it move. Oh, you make it move. Oh, no. Oh. We're back. Oh, get it. Get it, boy. Say hi. Oh, hi. You say hi? Hi. Oh, hi. Yeah. Oh, you gonna cover my face? Is that better? Is that better? You don't want to see me? Oh, thank you. You just gouged my eye. Oh, you're so funny. Hi there. What are you doing? I'm on the other side of the gate. Oh, hello. Oh, hi. Boo. What you doing? Boo. Ah. I will get you. I will get you. Ah. Hello, Killian. I'm trying to get through that. Oh, I'm trying to get through. Hello. Oh, is that you? Oh no, you said that my hair all messed up. Well, what? Oh no, you can't show people. You can't show people my hair all messed up. It's not perfect, but Killian's starting to try to stand on his own. You got it, buddy. Oh, yeah. There you go. Make a Dada proud. Oh, Gotta catch the balance. You got it. See those legs? Oh, strong boy. Oh, sit down, take a break. Yeah. Good job, buddy.
I did what? I did what? You want more eggs? Ooh, is that good? Put your hands in the air.
Gotcha.
Hey, Killian.
Oh, hi. Who that doggy in the window? Who that doggy in the window? What's better than dinner time with Dada? Oh, you love dinner time with Dada. Hey, is this what? My little boy loves to adventure. You gonna show me how you close the door? Yeah, you gonna close it? Yeah, make sure nobody gets in. Close that door. Oh, yeah. Is it closed? Oh, no.
Oh, okay. I won't touch your piano.
Welcome to Dad Talk Today. The podcast for dads facing some of the toughest moments of their lives. We are here to walk with men through divorce, keep them connected to their kids, help them understand their rights, and work for change in family law courts. Moms, you are always welcome too. We are all about advocating for shared parenting and doing what is best for our kids. Here is your host, Eric Carroll.
Hey everybody, this is Eric with Dad Talk Today. I've got a very special guest tonight, my buddy, Mr. Jonathan Vanderhagen. Jonathan, what's going on, man?
How you doing?
Doing all right. So, next month will be a year that we started Dad Talk. And one of the very first cases that came across, I found this article and we posted about it. I'm going to show it to you guys real quick. But it was talking about this guy that had spoke out against the judge. His son had died, and there was some stuff that went on in the courthouse, and Jonathan had tried to speak up about it, and they put him in jail. And this became our battle cry. I told everybody, I was like, what would you do if you lost your son? This went on in the courtroom. You had tried to bring it to their attention. You would speak up too. And the first thing I said was, when Jonathan gets out of jail, tell everybody to tell him to get in touch with me. Well, little did I know. I didn't know if that would work or not. But Jonathan, your family, your friends, everybody reached out and said, we're telling him, he knows about it. We're telling him while he's in there. I spoke to him just the other day, and I was like, whoa, this case just started blowing up. But we're going to get a little bit more into that. And I know this is one of the first times you spoke about it in a while, and I know the reasons. Me and Jonathan speak on a normal basis. This isn't just a guest on the podcast. This is my friend. And I know this is very hard for you to do. So we're going to gradually get into that. But before we do, tell everybody a little bit about who you are growing up there in Michigan and what your life was like.
I don't know, it's Michigan. I love it. I hate it in the wintertime. Life hasn't always been great. I mean, kind of had a rough childhood, but it inspired me to rewrite my future and just be different. And I've always inspired myself and other people to be different, not judge a book by its cover. And I've been judged a lot just based on looks or, stuff that I'm into. And I mean, it traces back all the way to when I was a kid. I was always the kid with spiky hair, bracelets, baggy pants and stuff. But I mean, that's not who I am on the inside. Like, people try to put me in this box that I'm like a criminal because I'm all tattooed or I'm a bad person. But at the end of the day, honestly, I'm probably the epitome of a cancer. I'm sensitive, I'm quiet, shy. My looks, I mean, I might look confident, but at the end of the day, I'm not all the time. I'm just a caring person. Can't always help myself, but I like to help other people.
I'm curious, did you wear Jinkos?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, and that was one of the first things that struck me. I used to have the eyebrow rings, the labrays, the tongue, everything. I had tattoos. I would keep them mostly covered up. But when I saw your picture on there and I saw the tattoos, it's like, they're going to try to paint a picture. And this happens a lot. But the more I get to know Jonathan and the more conversations that we have, what you got here is a man that wears his heart on his sleeve. He cares about everybody. And you got a beautiful heart, man. I know there's many times that you've wrote me and told me, it gets a little overwhelming with what we're doing here. And I've told you the same. One of the things I was worried about when you first got out, everybody wanted to talk to Jonathan. He had beat this judge in this case, and everybody wants to come and tell you their story. And what you got here is a father that's still fighting. He's got his own story, and we'll get a little bit about that, as we get into this. But tell us how you found yourself in the relationship with Killian's mom, and let's go a little bit into that.
About 2012, I was on a path in my life of pursuing more of my passions and doing music, and I was DJing, and me and her crossed paths at my work, and it was kind of like, I don't know, just like a cute little flirtatious thing. We didn't really know each other because we worked on different shifts, so we kind of just crossed paths, and I didn't really know the real her or anything like that, and I had a soft spot for her, so it was just flirting and stuff. And then eventually she stopped working there, and then she would stop in and see me, and it was kind of just like a nice connection and stuff. And then eventually I stopped working there, and we didn't meet up until probably like 2 years down the road. We chit chat a little bit on Facebook and talk about hanging out all the time, and never happened. And there's a lot of things I didn't figure out until later on. And at first, like I'm just a hopeless romantic. I just wanted to be in love and have a family and help someone. And I knew a little bit about her, and eventually we hung out. And looking back on it, I see at the point in time why she reached out to me then. I was kind of at a low point, and maybe I was vulnerable to what she's about, and I didn't even know that there's explanation for our type of relationship. I just was going off real life experiences, and it's kind of a story of an empath and a narcissist. And like I said, at first, it was real good. When she came and hung out with me, we didn't separate for probably like almost a week straight. She was staying with me and just hanging out. Learned a little bit, but it was kind of just, like that lovey-dovey stuff. And then, eventually, like we went our separate ways and chit-chatted. And I think weeks went on before we seen each other again. And then we got back together again. And I had no idea what was happening in her life at the time, but I liked what I was feeling and stuff. So, I gave it a try. And she had her guard up a lot, so I didn't learn everything, but
right.
I broke down those walls, and we had a good relationship, and I started to learn bits and pieces of her story, and it kind of made me care more because, I just wanted to help someone, and I thought I could really do that. She's went through some of the struggles that my friends and family have been through, and the way things were told to me at first, like I just felt bad for someone. I thought maybe this isn't the life that they deserve, that maybe it's just, their past. So I don't judge people on their past and stuff, and I let it flow. And it was good for a little while, and then there would be these gut feelings that never went away. But I thought maybe I was just overthinking stuff, and she made me think that, and I couldn't stop thinking about certain things. So at times I would dig a little bit and try to get her to open up about things, and she would just tell me I'm wrong. So I would, stop that stuff, and I just let it go as it was. And then eventually, as we opened up more, I found out more about her story, and me having the hurt I do, I was compelled to help her and do whatever I can to make the relationship work. And then eventually I started finding out more things involving her children. And I think that's what really grasped me, is because I seen a broken family, and I came from a broken family, and I was not only looking for love, but I wanted to help someone bring their family back together. And the way I was told the story, I believed everything she said. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of gullible at times. It's just my big heart. I like to see the good in people and not judge them on their appearance or what other people say. So I just let things go naturally. And then eventually she was in some trouble with her and her kids, and I didn't know about the other fathers, and the way the story was depicted for me, that she was just treated badly, and like they were all in the wrong. And I do what I would do for any woman that I'm in love with, and I protected her, and I helped her rebuild her life. I kind of made it my life to help her get her life back on track. I put my whole life on hold and seen someone that needed, someone to be the strong one. So I did whatever it took to help her and bring the kids back. And then eventually it got deeper, and I had to get involved with things that she was dealing with. It wasn't anything to do with my life, but in order for her to get her kids back. And I didn't know the true story about the kids. So, you never think that someone's lying to you. You think, you're in love, that they're being honest and stuff. So
you want to trust them.
I just kept at it. Yep. Exactly. And with me, I've just always been a hard worker and stuff. So it's like, I just let her story motivate me. And I just seen a future like, hey, we're going to make all this right again and do whatever we have to do to make sure you have a family again. And there's a lot of ups and downs, and I just felt like some days, you know, like I couldn't shake the gut feelings that I was feeling that something wasn't right or I wasn't being told everything. But then, like I said, she would tell me that I'm overthinking stuff or I need to forget about the past. And I was like, okay, you know, and then there would be moments, you know, where things would get blurted out when she was drunk, or she would start to open up more. And there's a lot of things I questioned. But once the other children were involved, I don't like to quit a job. And I seen how happy these kids were to have their mom back in their family. Yeah. And it motivated me. That was before I ever had a child. And I seen a future, and I was like, you know, this is what I'm willing to do. I'll fight for kids that aren't even mine. And it was a battle going back and forth, and I dealt with a lot because I just felt like, you know, just what I'm dealing with now, she was going through depression, and, you know, she wasn't herself because she was separated from her kids. So I didn't judge a lot on certain things. Right. And the more and more things went on, I learned more and more truth and learned I was being lied to. And there was a lot of times I tried to walk away. I talked to my friends a lot and went back and forth, like, should I stay with this woman? Should I leave? And the main reason I couldn't leave is the kids. You know, like, I felt like I would be getting their hopes up. Like, I tried this hard to help you come back to your family. And if I quit now, because I was kind of like the motivation behind everything, I was the person helping her get everywhere, do everything she needs to, help her live a better life. I'm like, if I quit now, then in the back of my head, I let those kids down. So I stuck with it. And eventually things got better and more involved with the other kids, and they were living with us. And then there'd be time.
Jonathan, I want to stop you for a second. I want to ask them, how long did the relationship last?
In the end, I would say about 3 years.
About 3 years. About how far was you into the relationship before you started finding out some of these other details?
Some of them were early, but like I said, some of the darker details, yeah, I think were slip ups. You know, like, I wasn't supposed to know certain things, and she had a habit of telling me things when she was drunk, and I'm kind of like a sponge, you know, like, I look deep into things, and when someone tells me something, I store it, and I'm kind of like, something don't seem right about this. But then when we'd be sober, I bring things up, she would tell me I'm crazy or I don't know what I'm talking about. So after someone tells you those things, after a while, you start to believe it. Like, okay, maybe I'm wrong, you know? And then I start kind of digging into it. I did things in that relationship I've never done in my life, you know, like, because something in my gut just kept telling me like, you got to look deeper into this. You got to do this and that.
I need to find out something. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. But see, something that you said that I think is very common, you was mentioning the empath versus or with the narcissist. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to talk. Again, I know you've got the big heart. You want to help everybody. I've seen it. Everybody wrote you their stories, and you put that right here and you carry it with them. And I could see this happening with you here. But early on in these relationships with these narcissists, when people hear the story afterwards, it's easy to be like, well, why would you be with a person like that in the first place? But these people can be very charming, especially when you first meet them, you're getting in that relationship. And like you said, in the beginning, it was great. You had a great relationship. But then you start finding out these other details. And we see people that get married after dating 6 months and a year. And that's why I tell them, like, take your time, because you might, in that first year, that excitement, that love is there. You don't really see that darker side. And then you start finding out more of these details. And usually that narcissist, they'll start to surface. And a lot of times it comes once they get pregnant or you get married. That's when you start finding out those details. I'm curious about how long was it inside of your relationship before you found out that she was pregnant with Killian?
I'd say probably 9 months, maybe.
What
And
was
the
that
thing
day like for you?
is not good, not what it was supposed to be, because
Okay.
I've always wanted a child in my life. I've put like my future wife and what I ideal for my child and my wife and all that like on a pedestal, and I had very high expectations. And that's the thing with the narcissist thing, is she made me believe that she was all that.
Yep.
And I believed it. But then eventually, she was living with me almost right off in the beginning, and I don't usually do that, but I was helping someone rebuild their life, and I knew the best way to help her was have her right by my side. And I let my guard down in a lot of ways, and my friends knew that I was doing things I don't normally do, and questioning a lot of things. But at the same token, those kids motivated me. And one of the last times, like with her stuff that she had to deal with DHS and CPS and all that stuff, and the constant up and downs between us, I was at my last straw. Like, I was talking to my friends. I'm like, you know what? I know I love these kids. I want to help them, but I think I should leave. And
Okay.
I was to the point where it was about to be done. And then all of a sudden she tells me she's pregnant very shortly after.
Do you think that she knew that, and that might have played into that somehow to keep you around?
I definitely believe she did.
Okay.
I researched it later and found it in some journals and this and that. She knew for about a month. And the thing is, like, she was on birth control the whole time. And we constantly talked about like having a future kid. But the first goal was, let's get your family back together and then we'll worry about that. And the thing is like, I needed to see how she was once the kids came back before I decided to have a kid. And like, yeah, I know like you can wear a condom and stuff, but I mean, she was telling me she was on birth control and it was working for the whole year and there was no other changes. So I believed her that she was faithfully taking it.
Right.
And she knew in the end, like I was about to leave. And I think the thing is why she hid so much from me is because she knew I would have never went for her. Like everything I know now, I would have never even hung out with her. I would have never been a part of her life. So she kind of whisked me in with whatever manipulation and tricks she had. And when you live with someone, eventually, the lies unfold and you can't hide everything.
It's very common, brother. That's exactly what happened with me. I don't talk about my story much, but once they get pregnant and moved them in the house, and then that's when you find out, oh, this is who I'm really dealing with. And I come from a very Christian household, so they don't believe in like living with somebody before marriage, but I did it. And I actually, I approve of it, because that's how you really find out if you're going to be able to last with that person, and you find out who they really are.
Exactly. And, like I've always been a one woman man, and I'm all about family and, building my life and being like a team with my partner. And yeah, her past and my past, it's not the best, but it's like I was willing to fight for it all. And like I said, when I was to that breaking point of leaving, it came out shortly after, and she tried to play it off as a joke one day. Like she made a post on Facebook of like a April Fool's joke, actually, saying that she was pregnant. And I looked at her very serious, because the whole time we were dealing with everything with her kids, I made it very spot on. Like, this is not the time to have a kid, like we'll do this later on. And she knew how I felt, like all my friends and family know I've always wanted a kid, but I was unsure about this situation. I couldn't prove everything, but I just kept having these gut feelings. And like I said, when I was about to leave, then it's all of a sudden I'm pregnant. But the way she presented it to me as a joke, I didn't take it too lightly. I was like, this isn't funny. And then she told me it was just a joke. So then I continued on and was still about to leave. And then eventually within weeks, she's telling me, no, it's real deal. So basically she knew all along that she was pregnant when she made that Facebook post. But I think she knew I wasn't going to react to it how most people would, because usually it's supposed to be like the happiest moment of your life. And that's something I always thought. But with everything that was happening between us and me trying to leave, like, it was the worst thing, because everything started going through my head. Like, this is not what I had planned for my child and my future. You know, like, in my eyes, even though things were going bad between us, I was still focused on, like, I'm going to help you get your kids back. I'm going to see how you are. And at least if I leave after that, I know I didn't let the kids down with an unfinished job. That, you know, like, hey, you got your family now. We don't work out. I'm going to leave. But then once I had a child, like, she told me, then I was like, I have to deal with this. Like this is my baby boy, and he needs me no matter what. So then once again, I started to forget about the bad things I was finding out. Like, okay, we'll work through this. And then there was just a lot of things that happened during that pregnancy that were wrong. And eventually, I think she knew about it before I knew, or the doctors knew, but my child was sick and there was something wrong with them. So then that scared me even more, because not that I wouldn't love them, but I'm like feeling bad that I'm going to bring you into this world knowing this. Like, is this the right thing to do? And I'm not really for abortion, but they were telling me that he could be brain dead. So it's like, I would feel guilty my whole life watching you struggle, knowing that I could have, you know, not made this happen for you.
So then that's the thing. So Killian was born with water on the brain. I can't remember what's the official name of that, Jonathan?
Water on the brain. The way she depicted it, that it was full-blown hydrocephalus.
That's right. Yeah.
But hydrocephalus, like, affects a lot of things in the body, not just the water on the brain.
Right.
And what I learned on later is he had a symptom of hydrocephalus, which is the specific of the water on the brain.
And so you knew about this before Killian was even born?
I knew about this like probably a month before he was born.
Okay. I never knew that.
No, because there was a lot of things happening. That this is my first child, and I'm kind of taking her guidance, you know, like trusting her, because she has other kids, and she's had another sick child with a heart transplant. So I was like, you know what, maybe she does know what she's talking about, this and that. And then there was other things that were happening that I knew in my heart it wasn't right. And, you know, like, she wasn't going to the OBGYN for the first 4 months. And in my heart, I'm like, you got to go to the doctor. Like, we should be doing these things. And she would always tell me, I know what I'm doing. I've dealt with this before. So it was kind of like someone just telling me, shut up, like, you're worrying too much. And I just followed her footsteps. And I think the doctors knew things at the OBGYN before I did. She never allowed me to go in that room. I always was in the waiting room and stuff. And there's a lot of things that happen in a relationship that didn't make sense at the time. And because I didn't notice the continuing patterns, it was just things I noticed. But in my head, I'm like, maybe I'm just overthinking. And
well, that's kind of where I was going to ask you, what was the relationship like after you found out she was pregnant?
It was still up and down, because, you know, a part of me is excited that I'm having a child, but I feel like I'm being trapped into having a child with the wrong woman. And it was just making me fear for my whole future, you know, like, because like I said, like, my biggest goal has just been having one happily married wife and having a real family. And I felt like everything was going backwards of what it should be. And it wasn't genuine love. And, you know, like, that's how I base my whole life is, you know, like, feelings and love. And I'm a very passionate, emotional person. And I felt like this isn't how it's supposed to be, you know, and it was kind of like a forced thing, but I was willing to do whatever for my child and make it work. So things got better a little bit. You know, I think the baby brought us closer together.
It does. Yeah.
But the past and all the bad stuff kept creeping back up, and I couldn't look away from things. It would make me sick to my stomach. And once she was pregnant, that's when I started learning darker things. And not all of them I could prove, but, you know, like, I would find out some things and she would once again tell me I'm wrong. And there was a lot of worries and stuff in my head going on, but I was like, you know what? I have a sick child. I'm willing to do anything or whatever for them. So I'm going to make this work.
Yeah. Gotcha, brother. Well, so let's get to the birth of your little boy, man. What was that day like? How did you find out that she was going into labor? And let's walk through. Tell me how it felt when you very first got to hold him in your arms.
Honestly, it was scary because
Yeah.
she had a C-section, and she woke up that day. It's like she knew, but she told me, she's like, I'm gonna have this baby today. It was on Christmas Eve or whatever, and I was excited, but at the same time, there's so many thoughts going through your head when you have a sick child, and knowing that, you know, there could be a lot of complications.
Right.
And he was in the NICU for 2 weeks. I shut down the world. I didn't leave that hospital. I stayed there. The only time I left was go outside, smoke a cigarette. I slept in the NICU. I did whatever it was take. The only time I left is when she wanted to leave to go take care of the other kids, but I honestly didn't want to leave at all. But I was the driver, so I had to, and it was scary, but there was a real connection between me and him that, you know, like, I just love the kid so much, and I believe I was the first love that he felt, because when he was in this little case or whatever, you know, like, most people could only touch his hand through stuff.
Right.
I was physically tall enough that I could lean over and kiss him and touch him. No one else could do that, and I felt real love there. You know, like, I thought that I was in love with this woman, and then I knew I wasn't. But something in that baby boy, like, leading up to the birth, like, it put a fire under me, and it changed everything in my life. Even though things weren't good between me and baby mom, I knew I had a little baby counting on me, so it motivated me. And when I was at the hospital, it was scary because he could have died then. And I'm sitting there blaming God too, because it's a mystery how this happened to my son. At least it was to me. And I was being told by his mother that this is God's plan and God did this. So I hated God for a little while, because I'd always imagined, you know, having a beautiful child and a lovely future and stuff. So I was blaming God, like, why did you have to do this to my child? What did I do so wrong? And it was a long 2 weeks. With the surgeries, he had to have surgery within the first day or two that he was in the hospital, and that was to drain the fluid on his head. And they predicted that he wouldn't be able to get the next surgery for like weeks, but he was amazing doctors with his progress and his struggle and his fight that they were able to do it in days. And he overcame that too. That's what really made me start believing. And I was like, this kid's gonna fight through it, and he needs me. And I sit there, hold his hand, and I was with his mom. And, you know, and that's when it was at that moment that I started to try to forget about everything about her. And it's like, you know what, maybe this right here is the purpose, and I'll do whatever I have to do to protect this child and make this family work. And I didn't get to hold him until probably like almost 2 weeks. Like, I think it was pretty close to that. And I mean, it's a feeling I'll never forget. It was the happiest day of my life. And
there's something about the birth of your child, man, especially the first. You know, I've got 4, but I've always said, you know, when you first become daddy and you get that, and that first moments, it transforms you. It completely changes your life.
No, it did. Like, I wish I could tell him, but he saved my life so many times. And you know, I was scared the whole pregnancy, because, you know, there's so many unknowns, and then you got doctors, you know, telling you this and that. And the fact that he was fighting and he survived, like, it awoken something in me, like, hey,
right,
this kid, you know, he's meant to be, and we can do this. And it just, everything clicked. You know, like, I'm not saying my life has been perfect before then, but when that child came, like everything just made sense and it made it all worth it. And there was a lot of struggles leading up to his birth. I mean, even from my car not working and the day of his birth, everything just worked. Everything got through, and eventually got to come home, and everything was looking brighter then. So I, tried to just forget about the things that I was figuring out about me and mom, and maybe it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know, but I just was doing it for the kids. And
Well, you wanted them to have mom and dad. And there's that sense of responsibility. I want to keep my family together. If there's something I can do, it makes you want to go the extra mile, and you try and you try and try. I've said it many times. I mean, and I believe in trying. Try to keep your relationship together. Try to give them that intact family. Sometimes you can't build a home with somebody that's not willing to help you carry the bricks. They're not doing their part in it. So let's kind of segue into that. What was the relationship like after Killian was born and y'all got to take him home?
Stressful. There was a lot of appointments, doctors, and on top of all the extra stuff, unfortunately, she still had an open CPS case, and there's a lot of things that didn't make sense then leading up to it. She was actually hiding the pregnancy. That was one thing that it didn't make sense to me at the time, but I wasn't allowed to tell people publicly like that I was having a child. She didn't want CPS to know. They actually didn't find out until she was showing a lot, and I don't know what they knew things about her that I didn't know, and I feel like the doctors knew things, and because of HIPAA laws and this and that, a lot of things were hid from me, and I'm still this day finding out things that were hid from me, and it's heartbreaking, but at the same token, it was inspiring because that kid was every appointment, every doctor's like, he was amazing them. And they're like, this is like no other hydrocephalus case that we've seen. And so in my eyes, it's like my baby boy's a miracle and he's a fighter, and it motivated me more. And it just made me care less and less about her past or the things that were bothering me. And I figured, once we fully had all the kids back together and the system was out of our hair, things would settle down and be better. And they were for a minute. I'm not going to sit here and say that every bit of the relationship was bad.
No, there's always good moments in every relationship. However, the bad seems to overshadow it sometimes.
But I mean, I think I thought there was good moments because I was being lied to, like I was being manipulated into thinking I was with someone different, and
you don't know what's real and what's not.
There was just so much stuff going on with the kids that I didn't have time or the thought to like put into all the other stuff that I was looking into before.
Yeah.
And I just knew in my heart, like, you know what, you have to make this work, because I was the backbone for everything, for all the kids and the family. And I was like, I can't walk away from this no matter what, because these kids need me. So I just made it all work, and it was up and down still. Like, and I think that's things that I regret in the end is not trusting my gut feelings, because I've pretty much been spot on with my gut feelings, and there's no changing that. I wish
hindsight is
I could,
2020. If you would have knew then what you know now, and that's unfortunately you didn't, and we can't look back on that. I do that many times. It's like, man, if I would have only knew, what was going on. But it warms my heart to hear about the love that you had for her kids. I know what that's like, getting in a relationship with somebody that's already got kids, especially you're living in the home with them. There's a bond there. Now you've got the baby, you're getting close. I know eventually this relationship ended. Could you talk a little bit about that and what led up to that point?
Throughout the relationship, like I said, there's ups and downs. It wasn't perfect. There was a pattern, there's a lot of patterns, but not patterns that I seen some evil and vindictiveness in the person, but the one thing I never, it was almost close to death. The one thing I never put on her is I thought the kids had nothing to do with anything, you know, because in my heart, like, I mean, there is evil out there, but kids are off limits. So I never, anything that was going on with the kids, I never thought she had anything to do with it. But there was still hardship between us back and forth. And there was this other pattern. It's like every time I tried to leave her, or like we had problems, say there was an argument or something, or I caught her in a lie, there's this pattern of you can't see your child. And she would want to take off, like, I need to get away or go hang out with my friends, drink. And in my heart, like, okay, do that. You know, like, I'm okay with that. You could disappear for weeks. I'm fine. But leave my child home with me. You want to take the other kids? That's fine. They're your kids. But leave my son home with me. I'm not going to work. It's the weekend time. And she never allowed it to happen. She was always, I didn't even understand the word of what alienation is, like, until all this happened. But I was literally being alienated from my child in the house, because a lot of people don't know is there's a lot of friends and family that never got to meet my child because I was never allowed to take my child, just me and him. You know, like, there was times, you know, when things were bad between her, it was embarrassing for me. I didn't want to take her around certain people because I was embarrassed that everything I worked hard for and thought is actually going really bad. So she wouldn't allow me to do that. Even when we would have problems, I'd go in the basement, you know, like, I'm not one to do all the crazy stuff. There was no physical altercations ever. There was no crazy arguments. And if we did have arguments, it was at this pace, you know, at this tempo. And it was always away from the kid. We have our disagreements through text messages or in the basement and this and that. And I had my outlet like I have in life, which is music. And honestly, I always wanted to bring my kid into my life with music, and she wouldn't allow that to happen either. And it was like, she'd never allow me to have alone time with my child. You know, like, I get, you know, it's our child, but I mean, sometimes when I have problems, like, you shouldn't take it on the child, because no matter what, I never did anything wrong to my child. So why is our problems affecting my time with the child? And there's a lot of things that kept happening, and I started to see the future of this problem because I started to learn more about the other fathers and starting to realize that it's not all their fault and that they're being alienated from their children.
You started seeing that pattern. Yeah.
I started seeing that pattern, that it's not all the other dad's fault. Like, I think she's the one for all these, and these other kids, like, their dads weren't in their life. I'm not saying that they're perfect either, but I know over time some of them have tried to be in their lives, and she avoided it. And I started to see, like, what's going to happen to my child if I leave this woman, because it was almost like childish things that were going on. You know, like, I don't care anything that's going on between us. I wouldn't keep the child from you if I felt like you're a good person. And she knew in her heart that I was a great father and that I would never hurt my child or anything. And the patterns just kept happening. And I felt trapped once again, because I'm like, if I leave, like, I'm not going to see my child. And that hurts me more than anything. And it kind of got me to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't love this woman, but I'll stay with her just so I can come home every day and see my child and know that he's okay, and know that, you know, he's going to get to all his stuff and everything's going to be okay. You know, like, I will lay next to you. I will do whatever it takes to try to make this work, try to get past it. And it just kept happening. And it was breaking my heart, because, I mean, I would just sit at home, like, I want to see my child. I want to be here for him. And someone's separating us and keeping us apart. And it got to the point, I'd say like a year into his life, it got so bad with the separating and these games, like using my child as a pawn against me and all these threats, you know, of what I'm not going to get to see my child, blah, blah. Like, I tried to kill myself. I didn't know another way out. And I know it's a selfish thing to do, but I felt so bad that, like, my child, I can't talk to him. He's not old enough. I can't let him know that, hey, this is not your fault, my fault. Like, it was like we had this perfect bond and we were trapped in something very bad and dark. And he's what motivated me to keep me going. But I just felt hopeless at one point in time. And I sat on a bridge and I didn't want to do it. And I sent her a video, and it wasn't for her. It was for my child. And her reaction to it is what clicked and made me step away, because she just told me to do it. Just tell me to do it. And I was sitting there emotional, crying, and I just thought to myself, like, I can't do this. Like, I'm leaving my kid. You know, like, what is his future going to be like if I leave? You know, like, I have to fight.
Sure.
Once again, I went back and went through some things. And at that point in time, I wanted to step into the court system, and that was used against me. Eventually, I found out she kept the tape, and she threatened me with it, that she's going to make me tell them I'm crazy, I'm this and that. And it's like, I'm not crazy. I wanted to hurt myself because what you're doing to me and my child. But she's not telling people that. So it's like, if you're going to go into court and bring this up, let's tell them everything, how it got to that point. And I could already see it, you know, like, you're secretly keeping this evidence on me, like, to use it in that evil way. Like, it draw me back into just dealing with things again. And, like, you know what? I'm stuck. Like, this is my fault. I got with this woman. I just have to deal with it. You know, like, you're stuck, Jonathan. Just be there for your child. Do whatever this woman says, like bowing down to someone. And
how did you finally get out of that grasp, that toxic grasp, my man?
It was a while. It was there's so much more that went on. Like, that was, I would say, that was a year before he died, around about there. And then I tried to make it work, and I was doing good for a little while. And then in the beginning of 2017, it was like a blessing in disguise. I'm not a violent person, never have been. I've never hurt nobody. I don't have anger issues, but there was this revolving issue with her of, I was trying to save her from her past that she claims that, you know, she didn't want nothing of anymore. And, you know, like, I seen that it wasn't just her decisions of the past, you know, like, it was her whole family or her circle and stuff. And I'm not a controlling person. I was trying to help you better your life. And she kept going backwards. And we kept having arguments. Like, what do you want? Like, do you want this better life for our family? Or do you want to keep taking steps back? And it got to the point, she made a comment about something, and it got to that point, and she walked away. You know, like, I was in the basement by myself. It was a very isolated incident. And I accidentally punched the wall, and I broke my hand. And I regret it to this day, because I deal with a lot of pain from it. I got pins and screws in my hand. But when I look back on everything that's happened, I realized that it needed to happen, because a lot of things that I was being manipulated about is because I'm at work all the time, and I don't know what's really going on at home while I'm at work. I'm just going off what I'm being told. And I gave her a lot of benefit of the doubt, and that put me in that house 24/7. And that's when more and more bad start to unfold, and I started to realize things are not like you're telling me. And it was kind of like in the beginning, we're around each other a lot. So I started to find more truth, more darker things, and it made me worry more and more and more. And once again, I wanted to go to court. And then that was brought into the picture, that I'm going to tell them that you're a violent, crazy person and you have anger issues. And I told her, I said, you know, that's not true. She's even admitted to people, I've never in my life hit a woman or a child or anything like that. I'm not violent. You know, like, nobody was even around when I hurt myself. the only danger I've ever been to anybody is myself. And it was a stupid mistake, but like I said, it needed to happen because there was a lot of other stuff happening while I'm at work that I was unaware of. And I started to see everything clearly, but then I realized I can't go to court once again because she's going to manipulate this situation, not tell them why it got to that point, make me look like the bad person. So then I got it in my head that I'm going to work towards getting out of this, and I had to rebuild my hand. Eventually, months later, went back to work, you know, like working with a cast on, like doing whatever I had to do. And I went through therapy. I rebuilt that hand. And eventually that led us into like, that happened in January. By like May, you know, I'm good. And that's long gone. So I know you can't bring that up in court now. You know, like I've done all this work and I started to see the bigger picture. Like, you know what? I think it's time. Like, I need to separate myself from this. I need to see a better life for me and my child. You know, I tried to help someone and it got me into this mess. And you know what? I got to just worry about me and my child now. I care about the other kids, but I think the things I'm finding out about his health, about her, everything going on, I'm like, this is bad. And I have to fight for this kid and I have to stop being scared. And I still was scared. It's a scary thought when you have to literally dig on the person that you're sleeping next to. You have to, that's the last thing I want to do. I just want a relationship where you're honest with me, but I know when I'm being lied to and I can't walk away from these gut feelings. So I literally had to investigate the woman that I'm with, the mother of my child. And the more and more I learned over time, it made me sick to my stomach. Like that,
Yeah.
this is the mother of my child. Like, and it made me feel guilty. Like, because I know I'm not perfect, but for my child, I want you to have the perfect life, the perfect mother, the perfect everything. So it hurt me to be like, I did this to my child. Like, I should have known better, but nobody could possibly know everything.
So you started connecting the dots. You hear about the other fathers and what you
I
were
started
told
thinking
about them. And then now you're living it and you're like, okay, this is going to be my story too. This is what they're going to
exactly.
tell about
I started
me.
to see
Yeah.
the pattern. I started to see the pattern, and
Yeah.
we separated. Not really separated. It was just there was a lot of things. I couldn't do this all in one interview and tell you everything, but there's a lot of things that I couldn't turn my head about anymore. And
Yeah.
I started to secretly work on a case because I was scared of family court because I watched friends and family go through it. Then
Yeah.
also, you know, just me being the type of person I am, how I look, they're going to judge me on that. And I hate that because I know so many people that are tattooed that are good people. I mean, people look at us like, oh, they're criminals, they're bad. No, some of the most heartfelt people I know are almost covered in tattoos from head to toe. And two is, it has
All
nothing
over,
to do.
brother.
What I hate is like our relationships or our appearances has nothing to do with the kind of parent you are.
Nope.
I've met some people that I don't think are great people, but at the end of the day, they're great parents. You know, like what they do in their life is different than what they do for their children. And I was like, I need a way to prove myself. So I started working on a case secretly. And as that was happening, there was more things that kept popping up with my son's health, that, you know, the timing of things, but I still wasn't piecing everything together. And then it got back to, you can't see your child. Like when we first broke apart, I just went down the street, you know, like separate a little bit, put a little distance. Like, and I thought maybe, you know, if we had a little distance, we could work it out. And had an agreement of me seeing my child, which I, from day one, should have been like, this should be 50-50, you know, like I should get to see him just as much. But at the same time, I'm the one getting them everywhere. You don't drive, you don't work, anything. So it makes me worry. Like if I separate myself, everything's going to fall apart for the kids. So that's what kept me in the house for so long and kept me close by. And eventually the cat was out the bag, that I couldn't keep my mouth shut any longer. And she knew I was only with her because of Killian. And
Right.
it was done for good this time. And my biggest fear came into after that. Like once she knew, she took off with him. She took off with my child for 2 months, and I had to search for him and I didn't get no help from authorities. They kind of like looked at me like there's nothing they could do. And I mean, when you see your child every single day and they're your world and everything, and they just disappear, like there's no contact, there's no connection, anything, like it starts to destroy you inside and you worry. And I had people helping me look for my child. We were trying to get in touch with things, and there was this game played, you know, like she was avoiding all kinds of things just to make sure I couldn't see my child. And then he started to suffer in ways because he's not making it here, not making it this. And eventually CPS got called because I stumbled upon some other things that were disturbing. And once I found those puzzle pieces, it brought me back to my son and everything that's been a mystery about my son, because like I said, the doctors were even confused about a lot of things. And I thought for the longest time, this is just God's plan. And I started to realize when I put all the patterns together and the dots and started to connect things, I realized there's something bigger happening here. Like there's something happening with these kids behind closed doors. And I found some things about her daughter, and it still didn't click at the moment about my son. I was just naive, didn't want to believe it, I guess. You know, maybe those were those gut feelings telling you something's wrong with this whole situation, but in your heart, you want to believe nobody's going to do that to your child. You know, like no one would purposely keep these things from you. And I started digging into every aspect of my child. I mean, collecting every doctor record, everything I could get my hands on. And still this day, the only thing I can't get my hands on is the OBGYN records, because they claim you have no right to your child until they're born, which I don't agree with at all, because it leaves room for error for someone to do the things I believe happened to my child during pregnancy.
Right.
And I just kept digging and digging and digging. Like I couldn't stop because I kept pulling up more stuff the further I dig. And then there was things to do with fraud and all kinds of things that kept connecting back to the kids. And then the roller coaster started, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And eventually we get to the day that he's gone. But I mean, I still tried to fight in court, and I don't know, there's a lot of regrets.
No regrets, brother. Yeah, I mean, you fought, and we're going to get into that. It's crazy, though. You talk about not having rights before the baby is born. You know, if a woman wants to have an abortion, it's her body, her choice. Dad, if he wants to have the baby, she's wanting to have an abortion. Well, you don't get no say so. You've got nothing to do with this. But after the baby is born, Dad says he doesn't want to, or he goes off. He's a deadbeat. But we tell these other people, they just wasn't ready to be pregnant. There's such a stereotype when it comes to this. And as fathers, just have no say so. And the fight that we go through, there's 2 months that you had to go and didn't know where your son was. I mean, that's this whole thing is just mind boggling. What was that like when you finally found him and got to see him again?
I didn't at first. Like, I found out where she was hiding him, and those are my regrets. Like that I didn't just follow my gut and go grab up my child and never let him out of my sight. I once again tried to follow the law and follow the rules. And when she took off with him, they think that, you know, like I sat around waiting, like, why didn't you do something sooner if you felt like there's child abuse? And that's the thing. I didn't know about the child abuse or anything until he was missing. And I started turning up everything in our house, everything to do with the whole situation. And that's when I started taking action. And I instantly started talking to lawyers, start trying to figure out how I had to do this. And the main problem is, well, we have to get her served these court papers. So my whole goal is when I'm looking for her, I don't care about her. I care about my son. I want to see him. And now that I know where you're hiding him, I could show up there, but I feel like I'm going to get myself in trouble. So here, now I know where she's at. Take care of this. Like, get her served so we can get in a courtroom. And she knew what I was trying to do, and she kept bouncing around. She kept moving around every time that her own friends and family were ratting her out, helping me find them. And I couldn't concentrate at all. I was at work all the time, like not being able to focus. My bosses know that I wasn't the same. Like, your child's missing. Like, a part of your heart is missing. And everything that you know about a situation is running through your brain nonstop because you're in fear of how this is going to play out. And I always knew it was going to play out bad. I didn't think it was going to get this bad, but there was a gut feeling that this is never going to go good if I leave her. And I eventually crossed paths with her once at a doctor appointment, because not only was she taking him away from me, she was trying to cut me out of all things to do with him, like take away my right to medical stuff and all that. And I found a little clue at her house of when he had an appointment. It was an important appointment. So I showed up there, quietly. I showed up there ahead of time. And I told the lady at the front desk what was going to happen. I said, look, his mom's eventually going to show up and she's going to say I have no right to be here, and I do. And the lady agreed with me, and it all played out exactly how it was. I stayed quiet. We did the whole visit, and my son was sitting in her arms looking at me, smiling. And that was the first time I got to see my son in like a month and a half, and all I wanted to do was hold him. And she wouldn't even let me touch my son. She wouldn't let me hold him, even though we're in a doctor's office or anything. And it was just devastating because I'm missing out on all these things. I'm seeing my child, and I just want to grab him and protect him and not let him go. And I'm still trying to stay in the law because I don't need someone to manipulate it like I'm crazy and I grab my child, because I've seen things happen in our home and how she acted, like put on this whole act and stuff.
Yep. And
it was bad because, like cops never been called to our house. And there was a time when we got in a disagreement, and I knew she was about to disappear with them for, say, a weekend or a week. And I went upstairs calmly, and I grabbed my child out of the crib, and I sat on the couch, and I said, you can leave, but he's staying home with me. And what happened next of how she threw on this dramatic thing and got all the other kids involved, thinking that I'm kidnapping my child and something crazy. I seen through that this is bad, like how she can manipulate this. And if the cops were to show up, I got a gut feeling they're just going to believe everything. I'm going to get arrested on this. So I literally had to give her my child back and just let her go because I didn't want to put myself in that situation. But when I found him, I still couldn't get her served because I was alerting them like, look, I found her. This is where you got to go. You got to serve her. And something kept happening where they couldn't get her or get a hold of her and stuff. And eventually I had to get her served. I found her going into a court date for another child, and we got her served. But then there were still more games after that. And then there was a whole manipulation that I'm not trying to keep your child from you. And I'm like, my child's been missing for 2 months. You are most definitely keeping my child from me.
Right.
And it was just terrible. Like you're using your child as a pawn against someone. And eventually I got her in court, and then that's when things got worse and worse.
All right, Jonathan. So this is the part of the story where it's going to get a little bit more in depth with what's going on. You guys bear with us. I know this isn't an easy thing to talk about, and I want to give props to my man right here. I know that the whole reason he's doing this is to help and inspire other fathers that's been through situations of parental alienation. And in stories such as this, I've heard from a few other fathers, very similar cases, what's been going on with Jonathan. But so let's talk about when you took your ex to court. What went down inside the courtroom, and why did you take her?
Well, I took her for multiple reasons because I feared for my child and his future. And like I said, when she took off with him, I started finding disturbing things, like I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat everything, like I knew by that time, I knew she was a bad person, and I still gave her the benefit of the doubt that in her evil ways that she'd leave the kids out of it. Like I like to think people wouldn't hurt children. And when she took off with him, I started digging up in the house, and I re-entered our home, and I was looking for clues to find my son, you know, because I didn't know where she went with him. I didn't know what was going on, and I started to see some bad things. Like, one is, you know, even though we were separated, we're still under a lease. I was still taking care of the house. I was still getting all the kids to their appointments, still doing everything that I would have been doing if we weren't there. And we were just right down the street. And when I entered back, through that time, I would stop by, cut the grass, this and that, but she would keep me out of the house. And I didn't understand it all, but when I re-entered that house, I seen a very dark, disturbing environment, and I felt like her depression was coming back full force. And what had worried me is because of her past and, you know, the drug use. And the thing with the drugs is, like, I didn't judge her on the past, because, you know, I've had friends through that same situation, and I think what inspired me to be with her is because I've always wanted to save my friends, and I was always that friend that, you know, tried to help them get out of that situation, but I'm not around them all the time. I can't babysit them. And when we got together, I felt in my heart like I was helping someone, and maybe, just maybe, you know, like, they were feeling life again without all that, and I was so that's something that inspired me to help her through all that stuff. And I'm not saying I'm a saint. You know, when I was a kid, I experimented, you know, like, never had a drug addiction or anything like that. But, you know, when you're a kid, you do stupid things. You're around the wrong people, this and that. But the thing with the addiction is it was downplayed to me a lot. You know, I didn't realize how in depth, you know, her history was with it. And like I said, is CPS and all that, they know more than anybody about everything to do with her. And when I was involved with her prior thing before my child, they weren't telling me anything. And I think in there, it was kind of like the HIPAA laws, like they wanted to tell me, but legally they couldn't. So I was left in the dark about that. And like I said, certain things that happened throughout the relationship didn't make sense at the time. There was times I thought she was slipping up, but I couldn't prove it, and she would constantly tell me I'm crazy and you know, you're overthinking stuff. So that's what kind of transpired in all the digging. And there's some very dark details into that we can get into another time. But one thing I was told in the beginning, you know, like, we drank together in the beginning before the kids got involved again, and to me it was just fun, having fun. But I think she was substituting, you know, with alcohol. But eventually, you know, I got back to myself, like, I don't do this all the time, you know, like, and that's when we're being more sober. And I didn't judge her on certain things because I knew she was separated from her kids, and I know how it is being separated from my kid. It leads you into depression. But I was told from that day when we were together that she quit cold turkey. And without knowing the extent of her addiction, how bad it was, I thought that's possible, you know, like, so there was never thought of any helpers or anything like that. And in the end, I started finding Suboxone wrappers in my house, and I really didn't know much about Suboxone, you know, like, and one of the times when I asked her, I found something in my house, she claimed it was for someone else. And once again, I believed her, and I told her to get it out of our house. I better never see it again, blah, blah. And then the whole breakup happened. And when I re-entered the house, I found those in a closet, obviously opened and used. And I still didn't click things about other things surrounding that. But I realized, you know, when we broke up, the depression probably came back in, and she went back to her old ways and was starting to scare me. And I noticed how I'm a very clean, organized person. Like, the house was looking bad. Just like the food situation, the things to do with the animals, the cleanliness. And when you got sick children, you know, like, being clean is actually a big deal because they have weaker immune systems.
Yep.
So things like that scared me. And then I found these journals, and that's when everything really started to change and click, and it's heartbreaking.
It is, and for any of our viewers that are watching this and they're not familiar with what Suboxone is a medication similar to methadone. It's used to get you off of opiates, prescription pain pills, or heroin addiction. So if Suboxone's being used, that means there's some type of abuse going on somewhere. They're not taking it for no reason. Suboxone doesn't get you high. All it does is keeping you from getting dope sick because you're doing other things. So you at that point in time,
that's the thing, like,
go ahead.
And that's the thing is, she never, like, come to find out, she was on the Suboxone the whole time, but she knew I was against all that stuff. And to me, like, I've had friends go through that, and like, I guess Suboxone could be used in the correct way is to wean yourself off and get better.
Right.
But the dope sickness, all that stuff, it only lasts maybe some weeks. So you don't need Suboxone forever, you know?
No.
But through my research, I realized is people get addicted to that after. And in my eyes, it's kind of like the government's heroin, because these people, I've talked to friends and they get more addicted to that Suboxone and methadone, and it's harder to get off. But throughout a relationship, we used to talk, and it was almost like she was telling me what I wanted to hear, but I thought she was being genuine. It's like, that's not the way to go, like totally sober, this and that. So I never thought anything about pregnancy, because that is one thing I don't stand for. You know, like, you got to pass, you got to drug, that's fine. But when it comes to having a child, it's not about you anymore. And you should be being as healthy as possible, because I'm not a doctor or have kids, but it doesn't take a scientist to know that the most important part of your development of your body is when you're in that belly. You know, all kinds of things are being created. So anything you put into the mix, it could screw things up. Well, like I said, I was kept out of the OBGYN, and I started to see why now, because, you know, she could literally have been on it and tell them, do not tell him, and they can't. And then there's things that happen leading up to the pregnancy that I look back on now, and it's like, there's a reason why these doctors were treating her bad. Like, they knew in their heart that this guy doesn't know what you're actually doing. So when I found the Suboxone, it still didn't click. I still wasn't thinking about my son, but I started reading into these journals. She wrote a lot. And you know, I used to push her with her passions, because I'm a passionate person with music and art. And I thought, you know, she's a writer and stuff, but I never looked into the things that she was writing, because we used to be in a small house before the kids. I would make music. I'd give her pieces of paper and journals, and she'd write. And I thought it was good for her, you know, like, because she was going through changes in her life. Right. But I never read into them. She never showed them to me. And when I started reading into them, there was probably a 20-page journal entry, and it was about her daughter and her daughter's heart transplant. And then mom talks about doing Xanax during that pregnancy and blames it on the doctors for prescribing her. But I mean, you should know better that it could affect your child and stuff. And that would have been her second child, so she already knows better. By the time we had my child, that would be her fourth child, so you really should know better. And that's something we talked about our whole relationship, that, like, I don't stand for that, not doing that to kids or anything like that. So I think that's why it was hidden from me, because she knew it. I knew what I knew now. I would have left right then and there at the hospital. Everything would have panned out so much differently, and I was manipulated. But I can't regret it all, because, you know, like, I shared times with my kid that, like, I wouldn't change anything for the world. But back to that is when I found the Suboxone and the journal entries. That's when everything, it started to really make my stomach turn. And that's when I started to dig into all his medical records. And I started to notice this pattern, that there was a reason why the doctors couldn't figure out certain things about her and my child. And that's because they were being manipulated and misled too. There was no speak of any drug use in there. Maybe that's because of HIPAA. I don't know. But I don't think they knew everything either, because, you know, things should have panned out a lot differently. But regardless, it started to make me dig. And leading up to court, I started stumbling on all kinds of things. And I even dug into the Social Security accounts, which I was locked out of the whole time. And as a father, that's kind of disturbing that you're locked out of your own child's Social Security money. But I trusted her. I trusted that she was doing the right things. We had a lot of bills. I thought I was being taken care of for, medical stuff. Like I'm supporting a family of 5 on one paycheck. Like it was hard. So I was thankful that, all right, we're getting some money. Maybe that's helping with the doctor stuff and all that. And things were going smooth, but little to my knowledge, his insurance was covering a lot of it. So then I started to think, like, where's this money really going? And there was a lot of things that popped up in our house that I didn't buy. And she wasn't working, but she told me that other people were buying for her. And eventually, through my digging of when my son was missing, I was nonstop digging. Like I was digging into everything about the relationship, our family, the kids. And I started to realize that when I got a hold of a bank statement that not only was, possibly these birth defects caused by her, but she was robbing these kids of their money and using it for her own personal stuff. And we still talked, even though she would ignore me. I know she read my messages when I'm looking for my child, and she would play these games, like send me pictures of him, like he's doing okay, Jonathan. I'd be like, no, I want to see my child. Where's my child? Every day I texted her, can I see my child? Can I see my child? And I would be cool, like I wouldn't flip out or anything, but she would ignore it. And then the more and more I dug into things, I would start to call her out on stuff. And it was to the point where even before I knew the bad things to do with my child, I told her, I'm going to alert people. Like, this is bad stuff that I'm finding out. Like, it was beyond your past and your mistakes. This involves children now, and this is something I can't turn my head about. And there was a lot of mysterious things that happened with my son's health, and the doctors trying to do testing to figure out how this was happening to our child. And I look back on it and I see that she was purposely avoiding certain things. She didn't want nobody to know how this happened to Killian, how this happened to her daughter. And I looked at it as like, I'm the one person that found the truth. Like, I need to alert people. I need to let people know what was going on. And I didn't have my hands on everything at that point in time. I was putting a case together. But at that point in time, I could prove certain things, with the kids missing appointments and things to do with the house, like the medication, all kinds of stuff, and the drugs. So that was my main focus when I went to court. And I filed that stuff, and when I filed, there was still like probably a month in between me getting her served. So in that month, I had dug up even more stuff, like with the money, I dug up all his therapy stuff, all this stuff. And I noticed all these times she was the one canceling things. Like, she would lie to me and tell me, oh, the therapist canceled. Like, no, you canceled, because I don't think she realized they write all that stuff down. And I just kept finding more and more lies and more lies. And I couldn't stop. I literally could not stop digging until I got to the bottom of it. And at the same token, I'm worried about my kid. Like, where is he? Where is he? And leading up to court, I had a lot of stuff to bring to the table. But when we got to court, everything was different. And I knew, hearing stories and just in my gut, that this was going to be a battle that I might not win because of how the court systems work and my fears.
And I kind of want to speak on that for a second, real quick, John. So I mean, and he's talking about, Killian had this condition and he needed these doctor's visits. These doctor's visits are being canceled. There's lots of stuff leading up to this. You're finding out these journals, all of this information. You're worried about your child. What are you going to do? You sat there, you got your stuff together, and you go to family court thinking, this is my solution. They are going to help me. and this is the place that I've got to do it. You're trying to do everything by the book, and you make your way to family court to find the answer. And what happens at family court?
Yeah, because I mean, in my head, I wanted to just grab my child and never let him go. Like go show up where I knew she was hiding him, grab him and disappear. And I just knew like how it would pan out, that like I would look like the bad guys. So I followed all the rules. I filed things. I even tried to do things on my own, you know, like I do everything myself. I even cut my own hair. I do this and that. So it's like, I knew what I needed to talk about in court. So like, what do I really need a lawyer for? What do I need to pay all this money for? Like, I can handle this. Just listen to me, look at facts, and we can get this handled. And through all that digging, I also was contacted by another father, and we started to piece together other things that were involving his court case. And I started to connect dots of when my kid was ending up sick and things going, and the two were correlating. And she always tried to keep us from talking to each other. She always made the dads seem like they were bad people. And at first, I thought they were. So I protected my woman, and I would try to keep them away, this and that for the kids. And then when she separated, people reached out to me, and we started connecting dots. And it kind of got amplified because not only was I filing in court for her, the other baby dads were coming after in court, because there was one child she didn't have custody of, and she was in trouble for stuff to do with that. She owed child support. She had warrants for arrest, and it was all unfolding all at once, coming from different ways. So I'm sure there was a lot of pressure on her, and she knew that I was not going to stop. Like, I feel like if I would have done like the other dads and just let her go on her way, things might have gone a little different, but I can't do that. That's my
Much
child.
to back up what Jonathan's saying right now. I've talked to one of those other fathers. They reached out to me when we started talking about your case. Everything this man's saying right now is spot on. I know he was mentioning, much like the Jeffrey Younger case, I think it was his son that she was trying to put him in dresses. If I got the story correct.
Yeah, that was disturbing to me, and I noticed some things because we used to visit the kids at foster care, and you know, I'm all for that. I have nothing against gay people or anyone different.
Right.
I don't judge people. But I don't feel like you could force it on a kid. And I noticed these patterns. I don't know if she was doing it to irritate the father or this and that, but she's had some people in her family that are gay, which is totally okay. Yeah. But this child is 3 years old. They don't know what gay is. They don't know. They've never even kissed a girl. They don't know anything about that. Kids are kids. There's boys that play with Barbies that do put on dresses. That's fine if the kid's doing that. But we would go shopping sometimes. She's got to get a birthday gift from him, even though she don't have custody from him. She's trying to make little appearances, and she would directly go to the princess stuff. She was bringing that stuff and forcing on him, just like when we'd be at foster care, she'd be like, why don't you go get Sissy's dress and this and that? And as a kid, they're going to listen to you, but you're enabling it. You're like forcing the hand. And then she would take pictures of him like this and put it all over the internet. And that's a story in its own, why I took everything to the internet. But
right. In
my heart, I felt like that's wrong, because you're telling the world that your 3-year-old is gay and you don't even know that for sure. You know, like,
to me, that's child abuse.
It is. I really do feel like it is, because you're not letting that child make the decision on their own. You're just telling them that's how it is. And eventually, I'm sure that kid is still confused by things that have went on, and that's more stories in its own. But I saw patterns like that. I saw patterns with all the kids, but it never made sense, all of it, until I dug into research about it. But when these things were happening, I was taking action, and I was ready to go to court and talk about everything, even the most dark things that I learned. I will put it all out there to save this kid. I don't care, even if it makes me look bad. Like, let's talk about this, because that's what I'm paying for, is to sit down and talk about everything. And I even went and seeked after a woman lawyer, because I felt like I was going to be up against a lot. So you know what? I'm going to try to level things out. And I was the only man in that courtroom. I mean, even the clerk, all of them were women. And I thought I found a great lawyer. And I'm not saying anything bad about her because I feel like some things that panned out weren't her fault. But she was understanding the things I was bringing to her attention. And we were on the same page that it needs to be full custody, like to protect this kid. And we started collecting, bank statements. We started collecting this and that. And leading up to court, mom was trying to once again derail me. Like, I'm going to do this and this at court, and I knew you're going to make up more lies. But at that point in time, I was already far off. Like, I'm not scared anymore. We're going to court. You're not going to manipulate me out of this situation. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to protect this kid. So, like I said, when I first filed, there's only so many things in there. But in my heart, that shouldn't matter because by the time I got to court, I had like books worth of stuff. So like, let's talk about all this because that's what I'm paying for and it should be about the child. And when I got to court, everything changed. That morning, my lawyer was acting different. And one thing that bothered me that I noticed right off the bat is when I was at court, mom was running late and my lawyer had to go take care of something. And something seemed off about her. I haven't talked to her about it yet, so I don't know for sure. But there was a conversation that happened without me and mom. The two lawyers went into this little courtroom, and this is before we ever, got to talk about anything. There's a history with mom in this same very courthouse. Like, I mean, a history with other dads, kids. They know, I'd say, right under CPS of everything to do with her. So I thought it should be a no-brainer if you do like a normal judge and look into everything about the past and you're seeing this come once again, you see the pattern. Something's going to happen. I'm not saying we can predict that it's going to be a dead child, but there's probably the abuse and the drug. Nothing's changed and it's happening again. History is going to repeat itself. But at the very least, listen to this father and what he's got to say. But if you're a real judge and you're doing your job correctly, you should be able to look at everything and be like, know who you have in front of you, this woman. And it was so much different. When we got in there, like I said, the two lawyers go in the room and then they come back out and my lawyer comes up to me and she starts talking different. Well, how about every other weekend? This and that. And I started getting confused. Like, how did we change from full custody to every other weekend? And I haven't even stepped foot in this room.
Very common, my man. They're trying to settle it without you even having to do a case.
Exactly. You're trying to settle something before I even get to speak my truth and present evidence and all this. Like, something's wrong with this picture. And I told her, no, we're going to do what we planned on doing for my child and this and that. And then we get in that courtroom and I feel bad for people that have had to deal with this over and over and over. And that's the part of me where I can like feel other people's pain and put myself in their shoes, because my court history was very short-lived and I got the worst case scenario. But I can only imagine what people have to deal with if they had to do this day after day, month after month, year after year. Like, it would be exhausting, and I see how people would give up. I really do. And when I was in there, it was all focused on mom. They were not looking at the past. They were not looking into things about the other kids. They were only looking at what I filed that first time. They didn't want to see all the extra stuff I brought into the courtroom. I mean, I brought folders, all kinds of stuff. I was well prepared, and my lawyer knew it, and they didn't want to listen to any of that. They literally, the only time they let me talk, basically when it was about money. And I started to see through that, because two is, when I filed, even though we haven't got her served, I'm getting court papers for my child and everything going on. And there was a time that they think that we were supposed to have a court date like weeks prior, and it got canceled, and they thought that I canceled it. I did not cancel it. When we got her served, They said that we had to move the date because you have to have her served within 1 week before the court date. I got her served 6 days before. So they made me move the court date. So that was 2 more weeks of worrying about my child, 2 more weeks of me building a stronger case. But we get there, or rewind. When I'm getting all these court papers, I noticed one thing that stood out to me, and this Title IV stuff. I didn't know everything about it, but I could see that it was about money. And in my head is, you haven't met me or mom or anything about these children in this case. Why are we talking about money yet? Like, we're trying to do things for the kids. It shouldn't matter anything about money right now.
That's the first thing that happens.
It was the very first thing, because my child is missing. I don't even have this woman served yet. And your police won't help me find my child. You guys won't do anything about the things that I'm finding in the house. CPS isn't doing anything. And in your mind, you're talking about money? Like, I don't want to say what I really want to say, but screw your money. Like, I will take care of my child. And in my eyes, you know, like, I'm responsible for that. Like, I don't know why the court thinks that they should get any part of the money. You know, like, you guys have nothing to do with this. You know, like, you don't. That situation gets me a little worked up. But when we get into court, like I said, they didn't let me talk much at all. And there were so many points where I noticed that mom was lying, and I tried to keep my cool. And I wanted to speak up. I was literally like in a classroom raising my hand, like, can I talk? Can I talk? Was not letting me talk. And then they start, you know, like, letting mom lie. And I keep looking at my lawyer. I'm like, she's lying. And she goes, I know. And in my heart, I was ready to scream. Like, if you know she's lying, why aren't we addressing this right now? Why are we wasting any time? Why are we not looking at everything John just brought to court? Because, I mean, I get a lot of stuff done in, say, an 8-hour workday. You know, when I start a job, I do every detail. So why are we trying to stretch this out? Let's put everything on the table right now. I paid out my ass for this court case. I paid all this stuff for it. Why are we not talking about everything today? We don't need to stretch it out for weeks or months. Let's put it all out there. If we feel like someone's lying, let's address that right now. And then, you know, mom's lawyer, that's a story in its own too that really aggravated me, because come to find out, mom's lawyer was the same person that was court ordered to do her supervised visits with the other child. So that woman already knows something's wrong with mom, because if someone is court ordered supervised visits, obviously there's something wrong with mom. And if you know mom's past, like, it's a no-brainer that all she had to do is look into your own records. You don't even have to look at what I got. But, you know, her lawyer's like, that's in the past. No, it's not in the past. I'm finding this stuff in the house. I'm finding all this other disturbing stuff. This needs to be addressed today. They didn't let me talk. And then they made a settlement or whatever, and it wasn't 50-50. It was like, I got the weekend or whatever, and I wasn't happy about that. But I seen that they weren't listening to me. So in my head, I looked at my lawyer like, we're just going to build another case, and I'm coming back. Like, I'm going to get this done right. And in that day, I know mom overheard me, but a lot happened that day. That day at court, I noticed this is not going good. Something's got to be done about this. They don't want to hear me out. They don't want to let me talk. I know they're judging me, how I looked. And I took a lot of time to present myself right, to make them not judge me on my looks or anything like that. And nothing was working. So I looked at my lawyer, and at that point in time, I had that bank statement proving some fraud. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave court right now, and I'm going to Social Security, and I'm going to hand this over to them. And hopefully it opens up their eyes. And it did. When I handed over that bank statement, even though I was locked out of it, I had already reported the fraud, and they probably were doing their investigation. But now I have proof. I found like a bank statement, and I start finding all these makeup companies and all this stuff that has nothing to do with the children, you know, like personal stuff. And when I handed that over to Social Security that day, they put a freeze on all the money. So now I got a little bit of custody after my child being missing. So I'm sure she's not happy about that. Then I report her for fraud all in the same day. And then she's texting me because court happened on a Monday. So I still don't get to see my child till Friday, even though I just won a little bit of satisfaction in court. She starts making up her own rules. And we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I said, no, we are going to follow the exact rules that they told us. I even was the one to say, we're going to do the drop-offs at a police station so everything can be documented, recorded. I'm going to keep notebooks, every little detail. She knew I was not giving up on this. And she knew the other things I was digging into, all this medical stuff. Through text messages, I was letting her know things I was finding out. Like, I couldn't keep my mouth shut about it because it was horrible stuff. And that's when everything got bad. Within 24 hours, I get a phone call from mom saying the worst case scenario is happening to my child. And at first, I wasn't thinking that it had anything to do with anything that was going on. I tried to believe her, and she told me that I think Killian's shunt is malfunctioning. Now, his shunt is something he had from birth, and it helped him. And the kid had many challenges, but he was achieving everything. And most of his doctor stays were just normal checkup stuff, therapy stuff. There was a couple times that he was sick, but it didn't make sense, and there was this pattern that the doctors really could never find what mom was claiming. And it just, I always wanted to believe mom, she has a sick child with this other child. Okay, she's right. The doctors are wrong. And there was a point in time leading up to court is I started to get my own voice when we're at doctor appointments, and I would want to ask my own questions, and I would want to, because it was to the point where I wasn't believing everything to do with mom, because the kid is sick with you, but then he comes home with me for the weekend and he's fine. Something's going on here, and it just kept happening, and it would all depend on her moods, or how me and her were doing. Killian would be doing great, but then we're not doing great, and then something happens with Killian, and nothing clicked until more and more patterns just kept happening. So when she tells me that this shunt thing's happening, that is the worst case scenario that could happen to him. But she's telling me this before she ever seen a doctor. And at that point in time, she's living 2 hours away. And I didn't question anything. I told my mom to drive me. We got to go. And we drove 90, 100 miles per hour, because she's texting me, telling me, I don't know if he's going to make it. I don't know what's going on, this and that. And the shunt thing, there's never been a concern or speak of it since his surgery. There was never no problems with it. All his problems were obstacles because he had a larger head. He had a helmet. That boy, I'm proud of him. He achieved so much with every challenge he had, and I wish I could tell him how proud I am, because he didn't have to live the life he did. And every time someone doubted him, every time something he would just achieve. And I looked at him a lot different than mom did. I looked at him hey, you were dealt a bad hand, but I believe in you, and we're going to get through this, and you're going to be all right. You're going to walk. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And his mom sometimes would be on the same page with me when we were doing good. But when we were doing bad, then it was a different story. Jonathan, Killian is a very sick child. He needs his mom. He needs me. He needs this and that.
I've heard that.
It would flip-flop, but if we're doing good in our relationship, she's on the same page. Our boy is a survivor. He's this and that. But then it went back all the time. He needs his mom. You don't understand this and that. And it wasn't until we separated and had alone time that I started to really click up on the patterns. This is not happening when he's with me. Something's going on here. I can't prove it, but I feel in my gut something's wrong here. So when that first hospital stay happened, all that went out the window. Something's wrong with my child. I got to go. And when I got to the hospital, I seen some things with Mom. Like I couldn't stop looking at her pupils. I couldn't do this and that. She was messed up. Something was going on. I even said it in front of the whole hospital that I felt like she was on drugs. And there was a certain thing that stood out about my kid that I can't prove it, but that first hospital stay, my son looked like he was nodding. And I'm talking about like the nod that people have when they're on drugs. He would come in and out, and it was very disturbing to me. I did not know what was going on, but these doctors didn't know either because he was at a hospital that knew nothing about him. So what they did is they transferred us back to our hometown because just the fact that she moved him away so far away was very bad for his health. You know, like, yes, we're separated, but every doctor, therapist, everything that knows about him is back here 2 hours away. And in my eyes, if you want to do what's best for your child, you're going to stay close by, especially when you're someone that doesn't drive. And that was a big concern with me at court. You know, like, look, I'm the one that gets him everywhere. You know, like, without me, like, he's not making it to this stuff. And she proved that with when she separated and took off with him. He was missing all these kinds of things. And that's what was worrying me. So when we're at the hospital, I was after court. The first day I was quiet, you know, because I didn't know. I didn't know if this was just an act of God, what was going on. And we went to the other hospital, and some things stood out. Like on the transfer, because we're arguing about me looking at her pupils, and she asked me, why are you staring at me? And in front of the nurses and everything, I said, you look like you're on drugs. And she's like, I'm not. She flipped out, blah, blah. And the person she was with, I've never seen before. She was a little loopy. But I couldn't prove anything. So the plan is we're getting in an ambulance and driving to the hospital. And that's when she started another move. She tried to tell me that only one parent was allowed to go in the ambulance. And I said, that's not happening. I'm going in that ambulance. And I went and talked to the ambulance people. I said, ma'am, we're not together right now, but I'm going in that ambulance. She goes, that's fine. You can sit in the front. So me and Mom drove 2 hours in an ambulance to the other hospital. Now, we went to the hospital that knows everything about Killian. They know, they're the ones that installed his shunt. They know everything about him. And when it's a baby, they take things serious. So they're going off Mom's story, and they start looking into things to do with his shunt. They kept him there for 3 days. Once again, I shut out the world. I didn't go to work. I didn't do nothing. Me and Mom weren't on good terms, but we weren't being crazy or anything. I told the people that I don't want anyone in and out of my son's room besides me and Mom. Like, something's going on with my child. I don't know whose fault it is or if it's natural, but I don't want all these distractions, you know, like, and in that time, I'm not gonna lie, I started bringing up some concerns because it was after court, and I started asking her about the money. I started asking her about the Suboxone, the journals, and she started getting really defensive. And that's why I know she knows I was right about things, and she was just telling me I'm crazy. And I kept quiet that hospital stay because I wasn't for sure what was going on with my child. I was worried about him. And when I was at the hospital, I was the one holding him all the time. I was the one in tears, like. And that's something that's always struck me with her. It's her lack of emotion when serious things are happening there. I'm not proud of it, but like, I cry when there's something going on with my son. You know, like, I can't hold it back.
Right.
So when that's happening, just let it go. Like, and eventually they release him. They can't find nothing wrong with him, so they release him. And we can get more into detail later about what a shunt malfunction entails, but basically it's malfunctioning, and it won't stop malfunctioning until it's fixed. But this problem disappeared, and it disappeared for like 2 weeks, and nobody fixed anything. Nobody did anything. Well, within that 2 weeks, we were doing with our parental stuff, but I was digging more stuff, and it was at that point in time I started documenting everything. I was taking video, pictures, everything when my child was with me. I was taking notebooks, writing, able to prove everything that was going on with my child when he was with me, when he was without me. And the pattern was continuing, like he'd be doing good, but then, oh, Jonathan, he's sick, and then he'd come stay with me, and different things were happening. Well, then I didn't know what was going on with her other court case, this and that. 2 weeks later, I get that phone call again saying that I think it's happening again, his shunt's malfunctioning. Now, this time I'm a lot more observant, and I go there and I keep my cool, but I was like, I'm not leaving this hospital once again. And I was thinking maybe the doctors aren't doing their job, but we're going to sit here. I don't care if it takes weeks. We're going to figure out what's going on. And then she was acting very weird, and none of it made sense. But once again, now this time they take him directly to the hospital where he was born, where they did the hospital stay. But this time around, mom doesn't call for help. Her and her boyfriend, new boyfriend, drive 2 hours. Now, you say this is the worst case scenario happening the second time. Why are you taking any chances? What's going on? So I started digging, and she was up all night that night. And me and her exchanged words, like, wasn't no craziness, because if there was, there would have been security in there, this and that. Now, this is the second time, so this should be even more serious. You should be even more concerned, because I was. She disappeared for 30 hours with a new boyfriend. I don't care what's going on in my life. There's no way I would have ever left that hospital. I don't even care, because she tried to say, then again, only one parent can stay in the room. I said, that's a lie. But fine, I'll go sleep in the waiting room. I'm not leaving this hospital. She disappears, and eventually, like, I'm with my son, and he was doing great. And that's the thing, is every time he was removed from her, these magical things that she claimed was happening at home aren't happening at the hospital. And they do more testing on his shunt. They were doing everything possible to focus on what mom was claiming, and they're coming up empty-handed. And then that's when I started to have my thoughts, but I kept to myself. And she was up all night too. And I was like, what are you doing? She had court the next morning. And I was like, well, I got her son. You go take care of your other court case. And I knew with that court case, she was being threatened with jail again. I didn't know everything that was going on correlating between my son and the other kid in the court cases, but I told her straight up, I said, don't use him as an excuse. You go handle your stuff, because I had a feeling she was going to jail. And there's lots of times, I'm not going to lie, I prayed that she would go to jail so I could separate me and my child and save him that way, and things would unfold. But that's another thing with the court system. They've let her slide on everything.
Yep.
And she comes back from court very quickly, like within an hour. And I'm like, well, what happened? She goes, well, they consider everything that's going on with Killian and adjourned it. I said, that's odd. You're being threatened with jail again. I don't see why they would do that. And she's like, well, they did. And she took off for 30 hours. So that right there clicked to me, like, you're not too concerned about your child. Like, because in my eyes, I would have never went to that court date. I would have been like, I got a sick child to take care of right now. We'll deal with that another time.
Yeah. And
the fact that she went to it and then disappeared after that, started clicking things like, what's really going on here? And after day 3, that would have been 2 hospital stays, 6 days, and the same very people that installed this shunt that know everything about it, once again, can't find mom's claims. So that's when the next morning 9 doctors showed up in my room. And they told me, Mr. Vanderhagen, we cannot find these things going on with your child. And she tried to tell people that I manipulated these doctors into saying that she's making all this up. They made their own decision. They're doctors. They're saying we can't find what mom's saying. And that's when I was like, maybe something else is going on. I said, I don't know exactly, but there's a lot of things correlating with these kids getting sick randomly, mom having court, all this. Something else feels like it's going on. And the one doctor agreed with me that we might be looking at a case of Munchausen's. And I didn't know at the time everything about Munchausen's, but when I've researched it after my son's death, it literally explains everything I've noticed with this woman. I'm not a doctor or a therapist, but you do enough research and then you take your own personal experiences and you start connecting dots, it's all making sense.
That's how I found parental alienation. I didn't even know what parental alienation was, but I started reading it and it was like this.
Yeah, it was like reading a page out of my story. So the lady looked at me, she goes, I'm going to get you the best social worker in the hospital to take care of this. So I thought once again, like, this is my chance, you know, like, please figure this out. Like, help me save this child. I did not want to give him back that day. I was scared something's going on. My mom's in my ear telling me, you got to do something, Jonathan. Something's going to happen to this baby. And I was like, my hands are tied. This court paper is telling me that I have to give them back. Now, some conversations happen with her and social workers. Whether they could prove it or not, or I don't know what the thing is, but they weren't treating her nice. Then she manipulated things, but they made me give my child back and let her go home with her. And I regret that day more than anything in my life. Like, I never wanted to let him go that day because that kid, he was grasping onto me so much when we were at the hospital. Like, every time he was sick and I showed up to the hospital, that kid was so excited to see me. And with him being gone for 2 months, literally almost the first time I get to hold my son is after court when we're in a hospital and these things are happening. And that kid was so happy to see me, and me and him spent some great times at the hospital. And I got pictures and video of all that to show, like, look how good this kid's doing. Something's going on, because then mom's got pictures of him at the hospital before I show up, and he looks totally different. So when she takes off with the kid, I leave and I go to work the next day. And then the other dad calls me and alerts me that not only did mom have court once that week, but she had it twice that week. And I think she was upset when the third day, when they came into my room and they said, we're going to release him. He's doing good. We can't figure this out. I told her, like, where are you at? Like he's getting released. And she was mad that they were releasing him. Didn't make sense. Like, you should be happy. They're not finding anything wrong with them. Like, and she was mad about it. And it kind of clicks now, is because I think she was planning on him being there for both court cases because they were 2 days apart. So what had happened is she went into court the first time, put on these waterworks, said whatever. The other dad wasn't there, got out of it, got a adjourned here. The second time, now there's a little curveball. Killian's out of the hospital. So what does she do? She calls into court the night before, leaves a message saying she can't come to court because she has a very ill child, this and that. And that's when the other dad is calling me while I'm at work and telling me she missed court again. And at that point in time, I looked at my boss and I said, I have to go right now. I dropped everything and I went back to my lawyer's office and I said, you get me in that courtroom ASAP. Something is going on. I don't know what, but I feel it in my gut, like something is going to happen to my child. This is an emergency. Now, my lawyer, I don't know if it's her fault or the court's fault, they told me I had to wait 2 weeks to get in the court. I told her, I don't care how much money it costs. Get me in ASAP. Like, I don't care if it's the next day. As soon as the weekend's over, we need to address this right now because these mysterious things are happening ever since court happened the first time. All this other stuff's unfolding, and it made me wait. So then I spend more time with my son, and I notice these things are going good. And I used to look forward to Fridays. Fridays were my favorite day of the week because I get to see my son. And the last time I seen him, I just felt it. I just felt in my heart like, this is not right. I should not give this kid back. And I was scared. I was scared of what the courts are going to do if I disobey this little piece of paper. And I went against everything that I believe in because I believe in my gut feelings. And the worst thing I've ever done in my life is doubt my gut feelings. And I thought I was doing what was best for him by following the law. And if I could change one thing, I would have never let him go that day. But I took him back to his mom once again. And that was the last time I ever got to see him. And we had filed another court case. And this time around, my lawyer included everything that I was finding, from the fraud to the hospital stays, everything we could possibly put jam-packed into one. That was first-class mail. And I know Mom had a lawyer involved, and I know she got those court papers. And she would have gotten them 2 days before he ended up dead. I don't know what happened in that house, but I know something bad happened. I know it in my gut, and I think other people know it. It's about proving it, but that day was the worst phone call in my life. And
so walk us through that phone call and what was going on when you got this news, my man.
Once again, it was a Friday. I was supposed to get Killian. So when I would get Killian, sometimes he would have his therapy on Friday, so I would only work half the day. I would go to his therapy, and then he would come home with me. But this Friday, I don't think he had therapy that day. But I was excited because one of the jobs I had was right down the street from me. I was power washing my boss's wife's dad's house. So I was like, this is going to be a great day. You know, like, I get to go do an easy job, and then I go get to pick up my baby boy. And I'm sitting there power washing, and I get a call from my mom. And I can't even make out the words that she was saying. She was hysterically crying, and I kept telling her, calm down, what's going on? And she told me that Killian's dead, and I kept going back in my head, like, Mom, what are you talking about? Like, what's going on? And she's like, he's dead. And I was like, who told you this? And the thing is it didn't even come directly from Mom. It came from who was with Mom, her cousin or whatever. And I instantly hung up the phone with my mom, and I start calling Killian's mom nonstop. And Killian's mom wouldn't get on the phone. And it was her cousin. And she's telling me, he's dead, Jonathan. And I said, what do you mean my son's dead? Where are you at? Because at this time, she was hiding her address from the courts and everything. And I didn't even know where my son was. We would have meets I knew around the area, but I didn't know where he was. And I remember I didn't want to believe it. Like, I thought it was a sick joke. I thought it was one of her games. Like, what, do you just don't want me to see him? Like, what's going on? And the conversation got more heated between me and the cousin. And I was cursing, you know, like, you're telling me my son's dead, and you're telling me to calm down. Like, shut up and tell me where you are, because I'm coming. Where's my child? And they told me, there's nothing you can do about it, Jonathan. Just stay home. And that's when, like, it just started really kicking in. Like, what do you mean stay home? Like, I'm coming. Where are you? And then she clicked off the phone. She goes, I'm blocking you, Jonathan. And I remember dropping everything. I called my boss shaking, like I told him, I was like, I can't clean up. I can't do this. I have to go. And I told him, I was like, what was going on? And he's like, are you sure? I said, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is for real, but I have to go. And all I knew to do was to go to my lawyer's office. And I remember it was only like, I don't know, like 3 miles down the road. And my leg was shaking like 100 miles per hour. Just everything just playing in my head over and over, like not knowing what's going on. And
I feel like I almost crashed my car that day. Like I blacked out just driving to the lawyer's office. And I remember showing up there and just blasting in tears. Like, and my lawyer just tell me what's going on, what's going on. And I told her, and she's like, "Are you sure?" I said, "I don't know. Like, someone contacted me, and now they're blocking me. Like, where's my child? Where's my child?" I remember screaming in the middle of downtown Mount Clemens. Like, I just didn't want to believe it. And she couldn't find out where Mom was because of things that were connected in the court system, them hiding things. And she eventually got a hold of some police and told me that it was true. And I like blacked out for a minute. Like I didn't know what to do. I start calling my mom, and luckily we had a friend that was willing to drive us. And I told the lawyer, I said, where is he? Where is he? And she kept saying Flint. And then I get a hold of police. And I remember when I had the first call with Mom's cousin, she said that the police were there. And I kept telling her, put the police on the phone. Let me talk to them. And that was another thing that was really disturbing me because she wouldn't let me talk to the cops. She wouldn't let me do anything. They were just telling me to stay put. And as soon as we figured out where to go, I was in no position to drive. Luckily, my mom's friend was there for us, and she got in the car, and we started driving. And I remember the police getting a hold of me and them telling me, "There's nothing you can do, sir. Just stay where you're at." And I told them, You shut up. I'm coming. Where is my child? I want to know where my baby boy is and what happened. And they kept telling me to stay home, stay home. And I was like, I'm not staying home. And we eventually ended up at Hurley Hospital. And I ran in there and I started yelling at people like where my child is. And they told me that there was no child there. And I was like, what's going on? And then they eventually got a hold of other people and told me that he was on his way there or something. And I just told him, I want to see my child. Like, where's my child? I want to hold him. I want to see him. I want to hold his hand. Tell me where he is. They wouldn't let me see my child. They told me nobody was allowed to see him. And I remember sitting in that hospital for hours, just keep bugging people, like, where is he? Let me see him. Let me see him. And they wouldn't. So eventually, I left there and I went and showed up at the police office. And I started yelling at them. Started telling them, tell me everything. I want to know what's happening, what's going on with my child. And then they sat me down and they still weren't telling me things. And then they tried to tell me that, we're sorry, you did everything you could. And I was like, no, I didn't. Like, I could have not listened to those stupid courts. I could have just held on to them. Like, so I didn't do everything I could. And they just kept trying to calm me down. And then they were trying to send me home. And I was like, I want to see my child. Where is he? And I spent so much time out there and so many people not giving me answers that eventually I had to go home. And then I went and got drunk. I didn't want to accept what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. And then it just got worse because at the end of the day, I wanted to speak my mind for my child. And I wanted to tell his mom what piece of garbage I thought she was and everything. And she would not pick up the phone. And I admit, I called her probably 60 times because I'm going to tell you how I feel. And I didn't threaten anybody. I didn't do anything. But I'm going to speak my mind. and I had sent her text messages, and eventually that turned into something she's used before, turned it into a personal protection order, and I've never spoke with her after that day, but this is the worst feeling in the world when you get this news and nobody will tell you what's going on. And at the end of the day, like, okay, he's dead. Let me kiss him. Let me hold his hand. Let me do something. And then everything just kept getting darker and darker. And I don't even know what like.
That's good, brother.
So yeah, I don't know what happened to myself. And I wish I did. I just want to know the truth.
And we still don't know. And there's many things going on in this case, and I guess moving on from that, we know what happens with Killian. You done went to family court. You warned him. Something's not going on the way it's supposed to be going on here. Let me have my son. And it's like, at what point did you have to go to be father? And now, your own flesh and blood, you're getting this type of news. You want to speak out about it. I don't know any parent that wouldn't. I see that, you made some videos, you started talking out about it. And
basically how things panned out, they forced my hand into doing what I was doing, because once again, I was following the law. I didn't go do what most parents would have done. I'm not allowed to go seek vengeance for my child. I'm not allowed to do this, do that. I'm not even allowed to see him. And it led me on to like, all right, you guys aren't gonna help me. You're gonna keep things from me. Once again, I'm going back and I'm gonna work this job myself. And I started digging more things, and I started going to Facebook because something is wrong here. And at the very, very least, I'm going to speak my mind. I don't care who's watching. I'm speaking it, and my people are listening. I never have contacted anybody. I mean, I've contacted the cops. That's a story in its own. But there's a lot of wrong things that happen. And it could have been prevented. It really could have, because whether what I knew or not about this woman, the courts and CPS knew things. And they were involved after his death. There's a lot of things, but those people, they know things. And they led me on to years of just doing all this on my own when I don't even have the strength to do it. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, I just want you to do your jobs and let me grieve. But I was left in the dark about so much. And then, I'm not going to lie, the suicide kept crossing my mind. And once again, that kid I don't know how I'm still here. I really don't. And if it was up to me, I wouldn't be here. Like,
it's because you got purpose, brother. Your story,
I know. Like,
it's there. I know it, and it's hard. And I respect you so much for what you just did. I mean, it's got to be one of the hardest things in the world to talk about. And there's other details that me and Jonathan's talked about. I mean, I can only imagine what goes on in your head on a daily basis. And then you're wanting to get out the story. And I could see it in you. I could see it in your eyes. You worked on it all the time. You wanted answers. You wanted answers. And it's hard to stop or to separate or give yourself a break or get in your own head and get healthy because you feel like you're letting down your son.
I didn't even care about trying to grieve or anything. Like, I literally, the day after his death, I just started jumping right into it. I think maybe it saved me a little bit. It kept me busy, but like, I just knew no matter how I'm feeling inside, like he's counting on me. Like, he was counting on me before he passed, like, I was the one person that was willing to dig into everything and put my life on the line. And I kid you not, like, if God gave me a choice right now, like, hey, give me your life and I'll give his back, I'd do it in a heartbeat. There's nothing I wouldn't do for that kid. And I tried so hard, and leading up to his death, like, I didn't want to take this stuff to social media, but I felt my gut. Bad things were happening. People weren't listening to me. And some of the stuff I post, it's not even intended for people to see. It's like me documenting things. I'm not good at writing everything down. So if I could sit there with my phone, put up a post, I'm like, document it. I don't care who's liking it, commenting on it. I just need to tell his story. And after that death, I just kept uncovering more and more stuff, and it just kept getting worse. And I just knew, like, whether the cops are telling me the truth or not, or they're just keep me out of it, like, I can't let this go. Like, I have to figure this out for him. And I just kept going at it. And then eventually the depression sunk in a lot. And there's times I just wanted to give up. And literally, if it was up to me, I would just stayed under a rock. I would have never showed my face. When they say, like, when you lose someone that's your world, that your world stops, it's true. Because everything in my life just stopped. Like, my health, my jobs, everything. Like, it just completely stopped. And it's a feeling that goes through my head still this day. I mean, I'm doing a lot better than I was. But if there's one day I could say to him, I would tell him thank you, because he's the reason I'm still here. He's the reason that I still do this stuff. And I can't change what happened to him. And I just hope in my heart that something's got to stop. And the more I dug into it, is everything else that was happening in these courts and everything to do with him, I realized, like, this is so much bigger than him. Like, this is affecting a lot of parents, and there's actually parents that have been in my exact same shoes that have tried to save their kids, and their kids end up dead. And I just realized, maybe, like, I mean, for a minute, once again, I blame God. Like, why God? Like, I tried so hard. Why did this have to happen? Like, I know in my heart, like, I've made mistakes, but not when it comes to him. You know, like, I didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve this. Why didn't you help us, God? And I think these days, like, I realize that maybe if God is real and everything, like, he was creating something bigger than me and my son had ever known. And then I seen this other problem, you know, like, the more I talked out and I read other people's stories, but then I noticed, I could feel in my heart that people close to me or other people, they agreed with the things I was putting out about these courts and everything, but they're scared. They're scared to openly agree with it or post about it. And I understand it, because I was there before my child died. Like, these courts, it's like, they do just like the mother of my child does. They use your child as, like, a pawn against you into scaring you of speaking your truth or doing what is right and wrong. And to any parent, that'll make you bow down. If you really love your child, like, you will do anything. And in my case, I bowed down to the devil. I slept with her. I did everything because I love that kid. And then once he's gone, you know, there's, like, two sides to me. There's the one side that just wants to crawl away and hide away and just, like, screw everything, you know, like, just, like, I'm a failure. Like, I screwed up. Like, I don't know how to make this right. And then there's the other part of me that's confident and that speaks up. And I feel like that's him in me, because there's things I've done that I don't realize what I'm doing when I'm doing them. And it's as if someone's guiding me, and he gives me that confidence to speak up. And I started speaking up a lot because I put myself in other people's shoes that this could happen to their child. This could happen to their family. And I know it's already happening in ways, you know, obviously their children isn't dead yet, but they're dead inside because they're not getting to see their child, or they're going through this court system that, like I said, I have a way of seeing through things, and I've seen this bigger problem of how things pan out. And I just realized, you know what? Everyone's scared to speak up because they're scared of what's going to happen to their child. And you know what? I ain't got nothing to lose anymore.
Well, and they're scared for a reason, and that's going to be the next part that we're going to get to. But I just want to do something before we segue into the next part of this story, Jonathan. Give me like 30 seconds.
You're good.
If there was anybody from the family courts right now that's watching this, that's got the power to change these laws that has affected me, that affected you, that's affecting the millions of parents in this country, what would you say to them? You went to them for help, and this is your story.
But I try to keep it on a positive note. Like, wake up, change things before this continues to happen, because at the end of the day, it should be all about the kids. And these kids aren't getting to live their life like they should, and they're not getting to see the people that they're stripping away the most important thing, and that's time with your kid. Kids don't care about the money. They don't care about this and that. And I just see a lot of greed in this, and courts not actually caring about the kids, because if they did, they would do their homework a lot more and really dig into every aspect to come with a better solution. But I see that it's not about that. It's about money, and it's disgusting to me. It's about profiting on our family's downfalls, and I would hope that maybe anyone working there is put themselves in their shoes if they had to go through this and not be a part of that system. And you have to fight for your kid up against all these laws that aren't in the best interest of the kid. They're really not. I'm sorry to say it, but there's so much brokenness in the system, and until like they make some serious changes, it's gonna happen again and again and again. And I don't want parents to go through what I do. I hate it. I mean, I'm getting better in my life, but for the longest time, I've hated my life. Like, I had my heart ripped out and smashed into pieces. Like, my whole reason behind everything is my child. So when you try to do everything for your child and you go against your own gut feelings and you put the fate of your child in someone's hands that neglects to actually put the time in to figure out what's best for the child, like, it's just heartbreaking. Because, I mean, it could be so much different. It really could. And I just feel like it's just fueled by greed and power. And
it definitely is. And you mentioned people are scared to talk out. Exactly. And they have a right to be scared. They shouldn't be scared. Again, family court should be the place that we go to for answers. And that gets into the next part of this story. You spoke out. You started talking about what was going on with your son. You wanted to know why this judge, after you had this evidence, a lot of it they wouldn't let you present, but you went there seeking justice, and it wasn't served that day. Now your son, who you'll never see again, because of this, you started speaking out about it. And tell everybody a little bit about what happened next.
Well, ever since the day my son died, I was speaking out about it. And that went on for a couple of years almost. And I just kept digging more into it. And I started digging into the things that were beyond me and my son, that were just to do with the court system and the judges and everything as a whole. And I just, like I said, once again,
put myself into people's shoes, and I was confident, you know what? I don't need anybody to comment, like on these posts. All I need you to do is just listen. And I know you're watching, like parents are watching. I know I can feel your pain, and I want you to know, like, I'm gonna speak for you, because someone's got to not be scared anymore. Someone's got to do this. So just watch, and let's just expose what's going on, the bigger picture. And I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people close to me, other people. I know they all agree, whether they're silent or not, but you will keep quiet because it involves your child. So I started speaking more and more about everything else surrounding it. It wasn't just my child, because I have my feelings and my experiences with mom, but it does, obviously it's mom and the boyfriend. Whatever happened in that house, it ultimately lays on them. I get that, but there's so many checkpoints that something could have been done differently, that it would never got to that point. And that is laced with all parts of our system. It's not just family court, it's CPS, DHS, it's people not doing what's in the best interest of the children. And I just thought to myself, that was a bad part of my depression, honestly. I was once again suicidal, and I just wanted to be with my child. And I was to that point that, you know what, if people aren't going to listen to me in the system, and they're not going to be held accountable, because you can't just take a judge to court and sue them, or you can't take this person down, I'm not a cop. I'm going to speak my mind, and I'm going to put everybody on blast, and I'm going to let the public decide. And it's not to harm anybody or scare anybody, but I'm on the verge of killing myself again. And if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to speak up for this kid, so he knows at the end of the day, my dad tried. He did everything. And at the very least, if that was the last thing that happened to me before I ended it, that there's a paper trail, like, look, this guy, he's telling his story, and maybe we should listen to him, because this is happening in every courthouse, every state, every country. Like, it's global. It's all around the place, and it's hurting fathers. It's hurting. It's beyond just fathers. It's hurting the good parents, and it's hurting the children ultimately. So I started speaking more about CPS and the courts and the judges and stuff. And there was stuff that really upset me with everything to do with that court building, because of their history with mom, because of how much they knew that you don't have to be a judge. All you have to do is look into the past and the present to make the best decision for the future. You don't even have to listen to everything I got to say or what mom's got to say. All you got to do is look into your own records, and there's clear patterns that nothing's changed. And eventually it's going to get worse. So I just start putting it all out there. I start taking their own court records, collecting. I've literally, over this time, I've spent all my money on my son. Like, any little time and effort and money, even though he's gone, like, I've invested everything I've had, even with people trying to stop me from getting certain things. I just kept at it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to prove these points, and I'm going to prove them with your own stuff. And I started collecting everything. And I started putting it all out on the internet. And I honestly, there's a lot of records I showed that had judges and other workers' names on it. I don't know. They could have been watching me for a while. I really don't know. Because I feel in my gut that it wasn't just an isolated incident, but, if there's any ounce of heart
I feel like some people feel guilty. Some people feel wrong that this happened to my child, and their names getting. I didn't even have to say certain people's names at first. It's all over documents. So, you know, if you're that person and you feel like, oh, maybe I did screw up or this and that, and they keep watching, and I made it a point to make everything public. I have nothing to hide. I'm just gonna put it all out there. And then I started finding out more things, you know, in our system, how they give you referees, fake judges for our children, and that's really upsetting because in our court systems, I mean, I explain it in some of my videos, but you can get a speeding ticket or get caught with a piece of marijuana, and you're going to get a real judge. And what do real judges do? They'll pull something up from when you were 9 years old if you got a record, and they're going to look at everything. And they do it right from the beginning because that's what a judge does. They're supposed to be looking at everything to make the best decision for the future. Because if they notice, like, oh, you're always having drunk drivers, it's probably time that we take your license, you know? Well, when the things involve children and abuse and all that, it should have been the same thing. And these referee judges, they don't look into anything. They didn't even know who was standing in front of them, or maybe they did and didn't care. I don't know, but nothing was being brought up, and that was upsetting in its own. And at the end of the day, like I said, I was on the verge of just being done with everything, and that was kind of like my last note. You know, like, I'm gonna put it all out there. I don't care who's mad about it, but I'm gonna let the world see this. And I started mentioning that court more and more in my post. I started mentioning the judges, the CPS workers. I just start putting their names all out there. I don't care. And there was never any threat of harm. Still this day, I don't even want to hurt the mother of my child. I just want people to be held accountable. I want justice. I want closure. I don't want nobody to be hurt. I've never hurt nobody. The only time I've ever fought is when I'm protecting someone. Like, I don't like violence. I've been abused as a kid. I've been bullied. Like, that's not my route. And
so I want to show everybody the results here, Jonathan, of what went down. So as he's speaking out about these cases, he's bringing to light to everybody what exactly is taking place in this county, what's going on in this family court. And this was one of the first posts I saw. This is from the Macomb Daily. But Chesterfield Township man jailed on a $500,000 bond for post about Macomb County judge. This was one of the first articles I saw. That you had articles a little bit everywhere. The first thing, $500,000 bond. I'm wondering where they got that type of money that to keep you in there. And just to walk everybody a little bit quickly through it. After Jonathan got in there and started getting some of this going, they offered you a plea deal, like, we'll let you out. You just can't talk about this anymore. But tell everybody a little bit about how that whole event unfolded. And let me say, again, props to Jonathan. He went through this for speaking out about his case before. We're being careful here. This is my brother right here, and you know, he's telling this case.
I'm gonna start off. I mean, I guess I should have said in the first place, made it look clear. Nobody's in danger. I mean, if the truth is dangerous, then that's other people's fault. But
that's right.
I've hid away from the world, like no one's in harm, and they never were. But I started voicing my opinion a lot more, and when it came to this judge, it was beyond just being my son. I started digging into more about the judge, their past with the court system. I started hearing stories from other families, whether I read them on the internet, and a lot of them on the internet,
I could see those people are scared because they do it from anonymous accounts, you know, like they speak out about this same very courthouse and these judges. And I noticed this is a problem. This is a problem. These people are scared to speak up because they still possess what I don't have, and that's children involved. And then I really only did like a couple days of research on the judge, like from this angle, and everything was public. It was all public stuff. And what really bothered me is that I stumbled on a Pinterest account and I started finding some bad things connected to this judge, and all my gut feelings that this is bigger than me. Like somebody needs to put these people on blast. Like somebody needs to do this for all the kids. Someone that isn't scared. Like I seen purpose in it. I was scared. Trust me, I've always been scared. I'm still this day scared, but it's like there comes a time where somebody has to stick up for everybody. It's kind of like when someone's getting bullied. Like
That's right.
I've stood up for other people that I'm probably going to get hurt, you know, because this bully is much bigger, but I care about the other person getting bullied. So you know what? I'm going to stick up for him. And I started putting things more and more on the internet, and basically on my birthday, like I started doing all this because, like I said, there's my dedication to my son. Like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, Killian. I don't know if I'm going to be here any much longer, but I'm going to make sure I, at the very least, nobody wants me to do this and do that. I'm going to speak up for you. And I'm going to try to speak up for other people of our county. And I put all this stuff on the internet, stuff I was finding, documents, other reports of other people having problems with this same judge. And like I said, my period was short with that courthouse. But the more I read into it and more people, I realized like this problem is big and it's time. So I put some stuff out on the internet, and everything's fine. You know, like when I post things, you know, like I do it so calmly. Like it's not like I'm like yelling. Like even if I hate the way they read into someone's Facebook thinking they know somebody or they know what they're going through. Like, because I could put the most emotional stuff on there and put it all in caps and explanations, but I'm still sitting here calmly doing it. You know, like I'm not.
Right.
It doesn't mean I'm yelling and it's escalating, it's getting crazy, but it's like when I'm onto something, I'll post about it daily because I'm trying to keep people focused on what we need to focus on. And little to my knowledge, when I exposed certain things on the 7th, the cops were called on me. Like I said, I've never contacted nobody. I've never personally messaged any of these people. I've never went out of my way to be around them. All I've done is gathered stuff from the internet, all public stuff, and my story and other people's stories, and just put it out there. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But then I posted more after that day with not even knowing the cops were called on me. And eventually I was living with my mom at the time. I was gone, and I get this phone call from her. And she's yelling at me, and I'm telling her to calm down, what's going on. And she's telling me the U.S. Marshals are at the house looking for me. And she's telling me, you need to get home now. And I told her, Mom, calm down. Like, she's like, I don't know what you've been doing, but they said it's something with what you're posting on the internet. And I was like, Mom, you know that I post things about Killian and everything going on. Like, I'm not threatening well, they think you are, blah, blah, blah. So I eventually tidied up who I was hanging out with, and I said, all right, well, gotta go home. And little did I know, they harassed my mom a lot. They tried to go into her house without a warrant. They would not believe her that she didn't know where I was. I mean, I'm 36 years old now. I don't tell my mom everything, and especially through this grieving. There's certain things I've talked about in this video was hurting myself. I don't tell my mom all that stuff. I don't want her to worry. we've been through a lot of pain, and even with, you know, my mom's not real computer illiterate, so it's like she's not even noticing the things that I put on the internet, but she knows that I'm constantly working on things for Killian. And I just told her, I kept telling her, calm down, like there's obviously a misunderstanding, there's something going on. So I was with someone and I told him, I said, we're driving back and I didn't know what I was coming home to. So I said, you know what? I've done it my whole life. I said, drop me off on the street behind me. I'll walk through the backyard. I get home and I had my niece and nephew there, or maybe it was just my niece at the time. They were staying there. And I didn't want her to have to deal with any of this. So I didn't even go in the house. I told my mom, because my mom told the marshals, when I get a hold of him, I will make sure he gets a hold of you guys. And she stuck to her word. I mean, I might have made him wait an hour or two. I mean, you get a phone call. I mean, you don't know what to think about it. You're playing in your head like, okay, why the U.S. Marshals? Why are they showing up at my house? Like, this is a little extreme. Whatever. So I calm myself down. I go home, knock on the door, tell her to make a phone call, because she told them that I would turn myself in. And I didn't try to run from these people. And I remember sitting in my driveway, and within minutes, I looked this way and this way, and I got 3 unmarked cars swarming my house like it's a movie or something. Like I didn't know what was going to happen. And I just calmly in the driveway smoking a cigarette. And they came and they talked to me. And it was emotional, and I'm thankful for them. You know, the things that happened to me, I'm not blaming everybody in the system. They were doing their jobs. They just get phone calls. They don't know what's going on. And they actually sat there and listened to me. We talked for probably an hour. You know, like they just heard me out. I told them everything that was going on, and they told me straight up. They're like, we don't know what's going on. We just got the call to come get you. And they told me that I didn't know what judge they were talking about. Obviously not the one that called the cops on me, but they're like, the judge just wants to talk to you. And me being gullible, I was like, okay, like, let's go handle this. They literally told me, like, you should be in and out within an hour or something. I said, okay, let's go handle this. And they were real nice guys. I'm not happy that people were harassing my mom. But I mean, at the end of the day, when they heard out my story, like, they didn't have to. They took the time to do so, and
They listened to
I
you.
even had a good conversation. Yeah, and they felt for me. They told me they didn't want to take me. They were just doing their job, and I gave them respect. I said, you know, that's fine. Like, let's go handle this. And I remember having a good conversation with the guy driving me and stuff, and they dropped me off in the garage of the jail. And I've been there one time for a DUI like 10 years ago. I know how it pans out. You got to go through this one checkpoint and you sit there. Well, I get put in there and I sat there for probably a half hour or so. And I watch other cars coming in the garage. I'm a very observant person. And I watch these conversations going on, and they're kind of like looking. It was kind of one of those situations I felt like, what do we do about this? What's going on? Like, because nobody could tell me what I'm being arrested for or charged with or anything. Like I said, literally a judge wanted to have a conversation with me and this and that. So I dealt with it. Then next thing you know, I'm getting put into the downstairs, which is, you know, where they process you for the first day or whatever. And I get moved around a lot in that day. And there's a lot of things I would like to talk about eventually, but we're not going to go into that because of legal things. But
Right.
I was in there for like 24 hours, and I kept asking them, like, what am I being charged with? What am I being held here for? And nobody could give me a straight answer. Like, it was, first, it's stalking. I'm like, stalking? I haven't went around anybody. I haven't contacted anybody. How am I stalking? Then it was harassment, this and that. How am I harassing anybody? Like, if anybody, they're harassing me because I'm not going around anybody. They're coming to my Facebook page. Like, I don't go to anybody else's page. I don't go looking for you. You're coming looking for me. So we sit there, and then I had never got a call, allowed to reach out. And that's when the fear started to come in. Like, something's wrong with this situation. Like, and I don't know what to do. Like, I'm stuck in this place. I don't know what's going on. So many of the workers, inmates, everybody was confused because I told them, I'm getting arrested for a Facebook post. And they told me, like, come on, man, you had to have done something crazy. I said, no, literally, I made some Facebook posts. And I told them why everything was going on. And there was a lot of people I appreciate in that jail. Like, for any of them that would be watching this, like, I'm glad that they
had sympathy for you.
They did. And they treated me with respect. And I treated them with respect, but
there's some good ones out there, man. I know they get a bad rap, but there's some good ones out there.
I'm not against all cops. I'm not against all judges, all that stuff. There's just some very bad seeds in every business, or even in families, and sometimes you have to clean house. And that's what my goal was to do, is to hopefully get the attention of people in our system. Like, look, y'all need to look at your own people sitting right next to you, whether it's in the courthouse, the police, and all that. And I think I think it was a team effort what happened to me, because I was not just calling out the one judge. I was calling out everybody. And like I said, the first day I was there, I was like sleeping on floors. I was shipped all around the place, not giving straight answers. And then eventually, the next morning, I'm getting an interview with one of the detectives. And there's a lot to that story too, but I had this guy I seen through, and he was manipulating things, and I thought it was very odd that he mentions that he works for a friend of the court doing part of the child support. So there's a connection there, which is very disturbing. Of all the detectives, I get one that's connected to the same very people that I'm outing. But that guy, he heard me out. And then he started telling me, like, oh, I'm going to give the judge a good recommendation. I'm going to do this and that, do that. And it was that morning, like after sitting there for almost 24 hours, that they start coming up with my charge. It was as if they had to think about it for a little while. Like, you should know what I'm being charged with when I'm being arrested, not like a day later of me sitting in jail. And then that's when it comes up with the whole malicious use of telecommunications, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, at the end of the day, like, I was honest with people. I was like, I didn't threaten nobody. Like, yeah, I put out some real stuff, and it, is some things that might ruffle people's feathers, but I'm doing it for my child and for other kids. I didn't threaten anybody.
And Jonathan, I'd like to read for everybody the post that they tried to use against you. You had a picture of a shovel, and it had the judge's initials on it. And it said, "Dada, back to digging, and you best believe I'm going to dig up all the skeletons in this court's closet." That speaks for itself. We're gonna uncover the corruption that's going on. But much like very early on, and there's similarities, and when we were talking about how somebody's going to use you punching the wall or something to make you look like a violent man, it's all about the perception and how we can use that to make this guy, he's violent. What it really was, and I will say this is my opinion, and if y'all see it, I'm glad you do, it was about shutting you up. Is what I know,
because what happened next, when I went to court with being there with 24 hours, I was on video court within the jail. And I don't think that they knew, but there was only 2 people that day that knew that I got arrested, my mom and one other person. And she followed us to jail. I told her, I said, I don't care if it's today, tomorrow, you make sure you're in that courtroom. Like, I need someone there. So literally, I'm being shackled away, and none of my friends, my family, nobody knows what happened to me. Like, I could have spent a long time in there. Luckily, I got out within a day. But what was disturbing is that they didn't want me to tell people that I got arrested that day. They didn't want me to talk about, they didn't serve me any court papers while that was happening. They didn't give me any kind of charge or anything. They instantly set my bail at
$25,000 cash. And this is after the cop told me, like, oh, I'm going to put in a good word for you, blah, blah, this and that. And something was wrong right then and there. Like $25,000 cash. And I don't have any criminal history or anything. You're setting the bar so high, no 10% or anything. And my mom and friend were in that courtroom. And even the bail bonds person was looking at my mom and was like, something's wrong here. Something's going on. So then the judge goes, well, considering your history, like, I can see that you're not a problem, but considering the circumstances of the people involved, considering it's a judge and people connected, I'm going to have to do 10% of 10,000. And I think what they thought is that I'm going to be stuck in there. I had money at home. My mom took that money right then and there, dropped my bail. So then it was probably a shock to them. But, I was also told, like, we will mail you stuff about your court date. Usually when you go to court, you got paperwork that day,
Right.
Let you know what's going on, what's going to happen. Nothing was given to my mom while she was in the real courtroom. Nothing was given to me. I was sent back. Took still like 4 to 6 hours to get processed after my mom posted bail. And they kept saying that, one, don't talk about the judge on the internet. Okay, that was fine, because what I explained in my trial and everything, this is not just about her. It's not just, it's about everything that's going on in this town, within that jail, within the court system, within CPS, with all these parents. Like, it is so much bigger than just that. And if I haven't gone and hurt the 2 people that were in that house where my son's dead, I'm definitely not going to go hurt no one else. And I'm definitely not going to go on the internet and tell people that I'm going to hurt someone. Like, people that are going to hurt people don't go doing that, but to me is like, I knew that I was different, and I knew I'm not good at typing up my words sometimes. I express myself with art or images, and I made sure I put clearly on there what I was doing. I was digging up things. And if you look through my Facebook, which they did, is I was exposing a lot of stuff. And it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this isn't all about that judge. There's a lot of things to do with this and that. And they spent some time researching my Facebook while I was in there that day of jail. And they could have been doing it for a while, which I think is wrong too, is because if the cops were never calling me, you shouldn't be investigating me at all. But it was very disturbing because they tried to put more rules on me. Like, okay, I get it. If this judge is quote unquote scared or whatever, and we need to figure this out, okay, I will not talk about her anymore. But they did not want me to tell anybody that I got arrested and that I got court coming up. And I felt like there's something very wrong with that. Like, why am I not allowed to tell the public what just happened to me, in this last 24 hours? And once again, I was scared, but, it wasn't about me anymore. It was about my son and all these other families. So I went back to Facebook, but I left that judge out of everything because it wasn't about her anymore. I said my piece about that judge, and it was on to the next part, and we've told her in court, she's not that special. I'm sorry. She was really not. I said what I had to say about that part. It was on to the next. So when I got out of jail, I started speaking up about all the disturbing things I seen within the jail, within the 24 hours it was there. I started speaking up about other court cases that deal with other families and family court. I was calling out other judges that are part of this bigger scheme that I see with this corruption in our system. It wasn't about that judge anymore. It was about everybody. Like, I'm calling you all out.
And I'd like to bring up one little detail that, me and you have had in private conversations. Jonathan's even talked about being jumped inside of the jail and not retaliating. or say anything because he knew it would be used against him.
Well, we'll get to that. That's the second trip. But the first trip, like I said, it was only 24 hours, and there was a lot of weird things that are going on there, and I would gladly talk about all of it once I can get my hands on all the evidence, because evidence just magically disappears, you know. But the thing is something just set in my gut that this isn't right, and I think they know what they did to me isn't right, and they're trying to scare me in from talking about it. And the part of me is like, okay, yeah, I am scared. I'm just gonna go home and wait for these court papers. And then, you know, like a day or two goes by and I'm like, no, this is wrong, because this could happen to someone else. This is happening to other people. I have to speak up about this. And like I said, I followed their guidelines. I didn't talk about that judge anymore. I started talking about the system as a whole. And the ironic part is everybody thinks that I got arrested because of the shovel picture. The cops were called before the shovel picture.
Right.
And I didn't know that until I got all my records and stuff. But the cops were called the same day I put out all the Pinterest stuff. And I think that played a part into exposing someone and them being embarrassed about it and whatever. So when I was in jail that first time, there was one thing that I did realize, you know, like they were very pushy when it was coming up to me going to have that little court date, you know, over a video. And, you know, I'm confused. I'm going through all these things. I like to read everything. And there's a point in time where they want you to sign paperwork. Like if you're going to have a lawyer represent you or court appointed. I'm already in shock going through everything. I'm in the downstairs. I'm trying to read all this. And they're like pushing me like faster. It's like, calm down. I'm a slow reader. I want to read things before I'm signing it. And then I got the gist of it. And I was like, okay, I need a court appointed lawyer. I didn't believe in it, but I was like, I see what you guys are doing. Like I seen through it a little bit. I said, okay, give me a court appointed lawyer, because I didn't know at that point in time who my lawyer was going to be, but I knew I needed representation. But in my head is like, court appointed lawyer means the dealer's choice. You're going to pick the lawyer who represents me.
Yeah.
So I let that be. And when I got out of court, that's when I got connected with my real lawyer. And I started speaking to him things, and he agreed that everything that happened to me was wrong. And we started, you know, building a case, and everything was fine. Like there was probably a week. I got arrested on the 10th, got let out on the 11th, and I didn't go back to court till the 24th. But from the 11th to the 18th, I posted every day, and I posted a lot of things that some of it didn't even have to do with the court system. It was just my everyday life. Now they backtrack and say I wasn't supposed to be on social media at all, which was another fear tactic. Like you can't use social media at all. Like don't talk about anything. But the thing is none of that was a concern, because if I wasn't supposed to post on social media at all, you could have revoked my bond within on the 12th, you know, because I was already back to social media.
Right.
But none of that happened. My bond didn't get revoked until the 18th, which I find very interesting, because what happened on the 17th? And the 17th is when I connected some dots, and that's when my real lawyer sent in paperwork, because he was already my lawyer, but until I paid him, he didn't send in his paperwork saying I'm taking over this case. So in their head, I still have their choice of court-appointed lawyer. And I feel like that was a little bit of a trap, and we'll talk more about that another time. But it was once my lawyer signed over, then all of a sudden, my bond's getting revoked, and they're bringing up what I've been doing for the last week. Why are we just now bringing that up? And I see through it now. And that's at that point in time, when my lawyer said they're revoking your bond, I said, are you kidding me? That's when I started speaking out more, because like, all right, you guys are going to throw me back in jail. I'm going to tell everybody everything now. And I started telling my story. I started telling everything that was going on.
And once again, it had nothing to do with that other judge. It was just a system to hold them arresting me. And it was like building up, you know, like every day, like I'm going to keep putting out more and more stuff because I know I got this feeling you're going to try to silence me. I didn't know that they were going to throw me in jail with a $500,000 bond, but I knew something in my gut, like these people are working together to silence me. And the way things are happening, like it almost feels like a trap. Like they didn't expect me to have a real lawyer that's going to fight for me. You know, like I feel like they thought they had it in the bag. I don't know. And then I find out that my court-appointed lawyer is connected with people that I called out. So it all starts making sense and stuff. Well, leading up to court, I went to that day to court not knowing what was going to happen. I made a lot of predictions, and then the judge wouldn't even let me talk or my lawyer talk. He only wanted to hear it one way, and he wouldn't answer questions. He wouldn't justify anything, and he slaps down that $500,000 bond. And I remember my mom being in tears and scared, and I was a little scared, but I looked at my mom and I started taking off my jewelry and everything. I said, "Don't worry, Mom, and this is what's got to be done." And I felt confident that, you know, I did my homework with my lawyer, and there was a reason I picked him, and it's because he is about fighting for the people. He's not about the system and stuff. He's about going up against the system, which sadly a lot of lawyers won't do because all they care about is their precious money or their careers. This man, you know, I vouch for him. You know, like I know that he probably ruffles some feathers, but he's the one man that will stand up for the people, because that's what the courthouses are supposed to be about, is for the people. You know, they're paid by for the people. They're this and that. And like we've talked about before, you go into family court, they don't want you to have any evidence of what's happened in there. They don't want you to have any witnesses. They don't want you to have any recordings or anything. And to me, there's something very wrong with that. You know, what are you hiding?
Definitely.
And that's why I've went to Facebook to expose things, is because, you know what? I feel like a lot of people agree with me, and we're going to work as a team, and we're going to put it out there. So when we got locked up, I'm going to tell you the truth. Like, I put out a lot of stuff leading up to there, and I just prayed. I had no idea if people were actually on my side or if they were listening. There was part of me that was scared, but the other part of me was like, just because your son's dead, like, you still have a job as a father. You still have to do this, no matter how scared you are. You just have to do it. And I was shocked. Like, I don't even think I understood the magnitude of, like, you just slapped me with a $500,000 bond, but I felt in my heart like this is much deeper than me going against a bond restriction.
Oh, it definitely was. It definitely was.
Much deeper, because like my lawyers explained, like a $500,000 bond for someone with no record, no violence, anything. And the weird thing is too, is when I got out of court the first time, I come home and within 25 minutes, you know, like obviously the first time I went to jail, you know, like I was scared. I wasn't going to do nothing. I still not going to do anything. 2 sheriffs pull up to my house within minutes of me getting home, serving me PPO papers from the judge and her father. And I'm like, you just threw me in jail. And now, because, like, if you were really in fear for your life, why didn't you file those PPO papers before all this happened? You know, like, but then it was like, oh, he got out, so now he's this dangerous person. He's going to do something. And I looked at the sheriff. I said, I'm not going to do nothing. I'm going to hide away in my house like I have been for years. Like, I don't want to hurt nobody. But that was just another piece of the puzzle. And come to find out, I think someone filed those PPO papers on their own, which isn't right either. But when I went to jail, like, I didn't know what to think. I really didn't. Like, I didn't hear from a lot of people. You know, I don't know if you've ever been to jail, but like that was
Once.
my first time ever being in there for 24 hours. And the days went on, and
you know, like I had contact with my close people, but I had no idea what was going on the outside. I had no idea if my lawyer was going to be able to hold up. You know, I know he was doing his job leading up to me going to jail, but once you go to jail, you have no connection to the internet. Me and my
Jonathan,
lawyer,
if I could
honestly
real
only
quick, my
talked.
man, I'd be remiss if we didn't say this. Nicholas Somberg is his name. And that was Jonathan's lawyer. And after this started going down and we posted it and it kind of went viral on Dad Talk and we started doing the updates, I was talking to Nick every day in between what you had. That man is badass, guys. I'm badass. And like I said, I'd be remiss if we didn't mention his name. So
There's a lot. Well, I know. I just try to keep people out of it. You know,
I got you. I understand.
Nick knows I love and appreciate him. And the thing is that guy still to this day is getting problems from our government and people because he's still fighting for the people. And they will go at whatever cost to try to take this man down. And I respect him.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have as much strength as him. But, you know, like, I'm just one man. You know, like, I don't have the power of attorney or anything on me. But regardless, when I was in jail, like, there's a lot of things that happen in there, too, that I hope one day I get to tell everything about. But it's just another one of those legal matters that I'm going to wait to speak on certain things. But the thing is a lot of people don't know is, like, me and my lawyer, we only talked, like, 2 times maybe while I was in there. I had this gut feeling, like, I just put my faith in him, you know, like, and when I got out and I learned more about him, learned about his family, his past and everything, I learned, like, I was right about my gut feeling. And this man, he lived up to everything that he meant to do. And I knew when I contacted him, I told him, I said, you know, this is going to be a meaningful case. I don't know what you've dealt with in the past, but this is going to be a case that really touches people because so many people are dealing with this. And like I said, we didn't talk much. So when you're in jail for that long, you start having doubts. You start not knowing what's going on the outside. And I had friends tell me bits and pieces, but I didn't know if they were just telling me this stuff to keep my spirits up or this and that. And I started to get depressed in there, you know, looking out a little piece of glass, like 4 inches, like just seeing a little bit of the outside world, getting mistreated in there. And like you said earlier, I got attacked when I was in there, and that was me sticking up for some people. And once again, didn't threaten nobody. All I did was verbally speak out and expose some things that were happening with my roommate and affecting other people in our pod. And he attacked me, and I should have been able to defend myself, but I knew that something in my gut feeling is like, they're going to use this against me if I fight back. So I literally took a punch to the face, pulled out Killian's pictures, looked at the kid, and sat down. And I just told him, I'm here for a different reason. I ain't going to let nothing break me. Like, this is for my child. And the odd thing is, you know, because other things happened after that while I was in jail, and I could have pressed charges and took it outside of the jail in the court after, and I didn't, because, you know, I just wanted that kid to learn his lesson, and obviously something gets different with him. But I know if I would have fought back, it would have went differently. And the odd thing is when I told the guards that I got attacked, the cameras weren't working that day in that exact spot. But
sounds like Jeffrey Epstein.
Exactly like it. But I know if I would have fought back, that would have been UFC prime fight in the trial. It would have been captured in every moment, like, because they wanted to paint me as this violent person. Because even when I was in jail too, I kept getting my hope breaking down because my lawyer was fighting for me, and I had an appeal date like a month in there, and they told me, I have it written. I took notes. I written down a lot of things while I was in jail, all my experiences, all my thoughts. And I remember being very hopeful about that day. Like, all right, finally, you know, like, because I was getting a different judge. He moved it to a different courthouse. I was like, all right, thank God. Like, you know, maybe someone's going to understand everything that's going on. And, well, come to find out, they're all connected. But they denied me on my bail, and they actually never even took me to court that day. I remember waking up early, knowing I had court, and I got ready on my own, waiting to get buzzed. And the night before, I talked to one of the guards, because there were, like I said, there was good people in there and bad people. You know, there was people that were looking out for me, and then there's people that were trying to instigate me and do things. And I grasped onto all that. And I think they realized that I, you know, figured things out. Right. But the night before court, I was told, you know, I had one of the officers look into their computer, their system. And I said, what time do I got court in the morning? He was a real cool guy. And I feel like they gave him problems because he treated me so nicely. And we'll talk about all that another time. But he told me, he's like, you got it at this time. He's seen it in his computer. So then I get up on my own hours before they would wake me up, because they take you to court earlier in the morning, stick you down in the bullpen, you know, try to break you, you know, get you tired before you go to court. So you take plea deals, this and that. I'm waiting, I'm all ready. And I watched someone get taken out for court early in the morning before people get woken up for breakfast. And I'm right next door. I'm like, why am I not getting pulled out? Because we're going to the same courthouse. And I'm buzzing. I'm like, hey, I got court. Now it's new guards the next morning. And it was the same specific ones that gave me problems all the time. And they told me I don't have court in the morning. I said, that's a lie. I know I have court. I've been waiting a month for this date. My mom is at court. My lawyer is at court. There's all kinds of people at court waiting for me to be at court. I have to go to court. And they kept telling me I'm a liar. I don't know what I'm talking about. They're like, we don't see nothing. So then I had to sit in my room for about 2 to 3 hours before it was time for us to get out and eat breakfast. And then once we ate breakfast, I started asking more guards. I said, I'm supposed to be at court. When am I going? No, you don't have court. You don't have court. Yes, I do. Well, they let you out at 8 to eat breakfast, but you don't get to turn on the phones till 10 a.m. So then I had to wait 2 more hours to finally contact my people. I start contacting them. I said, are you guys at court? Yeah, where are you at? They're not bringing me. They're telling me I don't have court. Well, we're here and everything. So I knew something fishy was going on once again. So then when that happens, I guess they denied me of my appeal because there was a chance I would get out and hurt somebody. No physical evidence of it. They've watched me for the last month. There's nothing wrong I've done. But just out of assumption, we're not going to let this kid out. And I think it was, they wanted me to sit in there more and more so I would fold. And I won it. And I watched people try to coach me into doing things, saying things, and I just kept being honest. And I talked about all my thoughts on the phone, knowing that they were listening, knowing that, you know, this is for my children and other kids. Like, I'm not playing into your little games. Like, I'm not breaking down. I don't care if this takes 6 months. I don't care, literally, if you come into my room and beat me with 5 cops. I'm not breaking. And I think they noticed it more and more leading up to court. So then we finally get to court the day of my trial. Now I was supposed to start on a certain date. And then that's when I get to court and they bring you through the back of the jail and you come in a little hallway and you sit in a holding cell while you're waiting to go into trial. And I remember the lawyer coming to talk to me, and I could hear all the people walking around in court. I had no idea if people showed up. I had no idea, like I said, people were telling me that big things were happening, but you don't know what to believe when you're sitting in jail all by yourself. You know, like, even if things weren't going to happen, I know my friends and family are going to try to keep my hopes up, you know, my spirits. And it was when things started to click and some people really let me on to things, that's what kept me going. Because I literally at times, like, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. The way they're treating me in here, like, I started thinking about suicide again. I don't know if they already took it this far. What's next? What are they going to do next? Like, I'm not cut out for this. I'm not a jail person. I'm not a violent person, but I'm trying to stand up for people and I'm trying to stick up for what's right. And
I had a few breaking points, but hearing people that like this was actually circulating around, that people are sticking up for me, that's what kept me going. Like, I'm not going to give up. Like, I've made it this far. Let's do this. And when I'm sitting in that holding cell waiting, my lawyer comes to me and he starts talking about they want to make a plea deal with you. And this is once again before I even went and seen the judge and the trial starts. And I thought, something wrong with that, because you wouldn't let me out a month ago saying that I'm this violent person, I might get out and hurt somebody. But now the pressure is on, and what I didn't realize at first, there's news cameras, there is a courtroom packed full of
Media. People were watching.
There's witnesses, there's all kinds of things. So now you want to make a plea deal with me before I even get to speak or we even get this trial started, which you could have done that for the whole 2 months I've been in there. But they waited, and I predicted this when I was in jail. I was like, they're going to back out at the last minute. I thought they would have done it like days before and just be like, we're sorry, let you out, which would have been the right thing to do, you know? But they took it all the way to court. And then once the pressure is on, okay, now we'll make a deal. And then the plea deal was like, okay, we want you to plead guilty to disturbing the peace of the judge. We'll give you time served, and then we'll let you out today. And it started clicking in my head. I'm like, wait, I'm not this violent, crazy person anymore? Like, I'm not a threat to society?
Well, wasn't they also saying that you had to zip your mouth?
Exactly. No, the plea deal, I don't know if I had to zip my mouth, probably, but what I'm saying is you just changed up your whole story, because if you really felt like you couldn't let me out on my appeal a month ago and I'm this crazy violent person, why would you ever let me out a month later and not even fight the trial? You know, like, if you really believe I'm this person, you're going to stick with your guns and you're going to take it all the way to the end of the trial like I did. Right. And I told my lawyer, I said, no, I'm not taking no plea deal. I'm not pleading guilty to something else that I didn't do. I said, and he was happy to hear that. He said, all right, let's do this. And then I go out there and I had a moment of weakness again, because we're out there for a little bit. And one thing that was disturbing is all the people in the courtroom did not know that they were trying to make a deal with me. And I thought there was something wrong with that. Like, why didn't you bring me out to talk about this deal? Like, you did it quietly behind doors. And I sat in court for a little while. They knew I wasn't taking it. And then it became lunchtime. And when they pull you out in the morning, it was another way of breaking me down. I literally, of all people, because when they put you in the bullpen, like, they'll bring you down hours before your court date because they have to get people ready for court, because there's buses going this way, all different courthouses. Me, my courthouse was literally a hop, skip, and a walk. I could have walked from the jail to the courthouse. It was the closest court building. And I was the only one going there that day. And it was later on, so they could have left me in my regular room, let me eat breakfast, left after breakfast, 8, 9 o'clock. No, they pulled me out at 4, 5 in the morning and made me sit down there for about 4 hours or more in this huge room. And I was literally the last one to leave. Like, it was all unnecessary, but it was another way of trying to break me before court. And at that time, when you eat that early in the morning, and me having a high metabolism, you start getting starving. And a lot of things that happened when I was in jail is like, I'm starving. Like, I'm not eating what I should. Like, all this extra stress on me, it takes a toll on you. And I could see why other people act out in jail. It's like, people are starving. You know, people are under these conditions, and you're putting them, you're doing more corrupt things. You're testing people. You're trying to put them in these situations to make them fold. By the time they get to court, like, all right, whatever, I'll take a deal, you know? And I almost took that, because when everybody from court went to lunch, they stuck me back in the holding cell. And I start asking the guards, like, do I get to eat lunch? I've been at court for like 6 hours. I've been up for like 8 hours. Like, I am hungry. Do I get to eat? Like, I don't care if it's my bag lunch, anything.
And they like laughed. I could hear them on their side like laughing, like, no, you don't get to eat. And I was like, this is gonna get worse and worse and worse the longer I'm here. I know it. They're gonna keep, because now all the media and the news and everything, they're going to punish me worse and worse and worse. And that was at the point in time I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I really don't. Like this, I know I'm standing up for something and I'm doing it, but the things that are happening on the inside and how I'm getting treated, like this is wrong. And I just have a feeling like every day is going to get worse. And I didn't know like if I could physically handle it. So when I came back out in the courtroom, my lawyer was mad at me and some people were in shock, but for a minute I broke down. I was starving, I was hungry, I was stressed out, and I asked in front of the whole courtroom, like, so what is this deal and title again? And they got all like happy, like, and my lawyer was trying to speak, and the judge was like, no, you let your client speak, whatever he wants to do. So they wanted me to take this deal. And when he started explaining it again, I'm looking at my mom, and I knew I was suicidal. Like I knew like things were happening. I just don't. But that's another reason I have never done this. Like I can't do it to my mom and my family. Like I know it's a selfish thing to hurt yourself, but when you want to be with your child and your loved ones so much, like, and the pain is so, it crosses your mind daily, and the things you go through, and when you're stuck in jail, it gets worse. I can see why people have hurt themselves in jail. It's not the place to be when you shouldn't be there and you're dealing with all these extra emotions. So I broke down for a minute, and everyone's in shock, like thinking I'm about to fold. And then a baby boy, he came into my head again. Like a judge was sitting there trying to like sweeten me up, like, you know, this and this, you just have to plead guilty to this, we'll let you out today. And then I denied him of it. I told him, I said, you know, Your Honor, I said, me, yeah, I might take it, but as a father, I cannot do that. And he was upset. The crowd was happy, and like usual, he yelled at the crowd for being happy, but you know, it was how I was being treated that made me broke down. But then I realized, like I told you before, like I do things without noticing what I'm doing, and I feel like that needed to happen because nobody in that courtroom knew that they tried to make a dirty plea deal with me.
Yeah.
You know, they did it behind closed doors. So I feel like people needed to know that they tried to do this. So everything happens for a reason, whether we see it when it's happening or see it later, like I have. You know, I realized that moment needed to happen. So then that, you know, I knew after that point, things are going to get worse. Like he's taking it to trial. They didn't want it to go to trial. You know, they're going to keep going at it worse and worse. And that it got to the point, you know, like still this day, I got to write on a prayer. I got to write on like, you know, like hope and faith. That's all I had at this point. And the things that kept me in jail going is like, I had my mom send me pictures of my son. Like, it's still what gets me going every day. I mean, I don't get to kiss my child. I kiss stuffed animals and pictures daily. Like, I mean, it's my only connection with him. And just putting those pictures up in my room, having that with me, hearing what's going on the outside, I just told myself, you know what? I don't care. I don't care if I'm in here for a year. I'm not backing down. Like, I have to do this. Like, my kid needs me. Like, who am I as a father if I went through all this and then take this deal and just give up now? Like that. I already feel like, you know, like I know people tell me you didn't fail. Like if I would have took that deal, like I'm letting my child down and letting him like watch me and be like, sorry, bud, I've tried so hard, but I can't do this, you know, and I'm glad that I've never succeeded on ending my life or doing things, because yes, it would take my pain away, but I feel like if everything's real that I believe in with God and angels, like I believe that would hurt. Like my dad, he quit, you know, like, and that's the thing that keeps me going every day is I can't quit on the kid. And even I've told you before, like, I don't even want to be rehashing this stuff. But I feel like if I can't save him, maybe, just maybe I can save one other kid or something, you know, like, just people need to wake up and stop worrying about money and power and start putting kids above everything. And I mean, I'm happy that everything went down as it did, but I mean,
I was one of those guys too when I found out you didn't take that plea deal. I was like, this man is a man that believes in what he's doing and he's sticking to his guns. And I'm going to tell you, I think most people would have broke under that pressure. No, jail is not a place you want to be. And time feels like it goes by really, 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 really slowly. I spent 24 hours years ago DUI when I was younger, you know, so never done any big time, but I know what it's like. And
there was a lot of petty, childish stuff too that happened to me in jail that I just knew, like, you guys this is wrong. Like, you're trying to get me to break. You're trying to do things, and it's like, I just sat in my room most of the time. I stayed away from everybody. I isolated myself. I'm just like, I have to stay focused, and art helped me a lot. Like, I drew every day, you know, painted, drew, like, for my son. Like, I just had to keep focused, and I told you before, I'm thankful because I did speak to a lot of people in there, and it sucks, but some of them had to be quiet with their support for me, you know, like, from guards to, you know, like, they supported me, but they had to keep quiet about it, and I appreciate them because knowing that they're not all bad and that they had my back and stuff, like, it helped me because I knew at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna have some inmates and some guards that mess with me, but there are some good people in here and they're rooting for me, and they know this is wrong, and you just gotta stick at it. And leading more up in the court, like, I had more and more faith, you know, like, just the way things were going, I was like, you know what, everything does happen for a reason, and I have to stick this one out. And even if I lose, like, at least at the end of the day, I know that I gave it my all, you know, like, I didn't quit. And that's that. I was proud of myself, but then when I got out, like, overwhelming because I didn't even know if it was real. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, we're gonna get to that. Before we do, though, I mean, what was that feeling like when you're in the courtroom and they read that verdict and you found out that you won? What was going through your head?
My son.
Yeah.
I just that's the only thing I've ever wanted is just him to make him proud. You know, like, I mean, just to know that, like, hey, like, I hope you're watching, buddy. Like I did it, and maybe, you know, like, maybe we are gonna carry out this bigger plan and help people because, like I said, I can't change what happened to him, but it's going on 3 years, man. I'm getting drained of this, keep rehashing this, but if at the end of the day I can help someone, then it's all worth it to me. And I wish I could talk to my kid. I wish I could have a conversation with him and let him know. And I think he knows. Like, I really do. I believe in God. I know a lot of people don't, but I do. And it was overwhelming. And there were some things that happened leading up that gave me a little faith. You know, like, even the guards were cool. Like, when the verdict was being taken care of, I got put back in a holding cell, and I was scared. I didn't know how it was gonna go because I watched how they tried to manipulate things. But my lawyer, you know, he held up his job at the end, and I wish the world could see those last 2 days. I really do. And that's another thing of them withholding evidence. You know, they want to charge me $1,500 for a transcript, but I don't even want the transcript. I want the videos. But I sat in that room, like, they gave me a meal, like, my people,
brought back lunch on the third day to make sure I got to eat. And I sat there eating, and I paced them back and forth, and I just kept praying and praying. I was like, please, Killian, please, like, make this all happen. And I don't usually know how long it takes for a verdict, but it wasn't long. And I was getting called out, and still at that, I was still like back and forth, like, how's this gonna go? How this is gonna go? And I remember, good guys, but I don't want to get anyone in trouble. But I remember one of the guards telling me right before I walked back into the courtroom, he goes, look, he goes, whichever way this goes, you gotta keep your cool. He goes, even if you win, you gotta keep your cool and quiet. I was like, I got it. He's like, no, you gotta be cool like Fonzie. And I was like, all right, man, I got this. And it's just like things like that, like, it has stored my faith that, like I said, not everyone in our system is bad. Not all our cops are bad, and they were just doing their job. They actually watched out for me, like they were protecting me, and I'm thankful for every one of them. And when that verdict got read, yeah, like I just wanted to hug my family. I think I hugged Nick because I wasn't really allowed to touch people yet. But even at that point, the judge, I don't think he was happy. Like, they told everybody they got to be quiet and calm down, and that there's a lot of things that happen in that courtroom that I hope me and my lawyer get to speak up and expose later on. But I don't want to ruin anything yet.
Right. So I'm taking this thing on a little bit of a lighter note and get a smile on your face when you finally get out of here, Jonathan. What was the first thing you got to eat after eating that jail food?
Well, I mean, the first thing is I sat in that. I don't even think they wanted me to be there. Like, my ride, their car, like, I was there with my mom and one of my good friends, and we were waiting on our ride. So I was in the parking lot of the jail for a while, and I feel like they didn't even. Actually, let's rewind. Usually, when you get processed, like, you get let off or, you get your bond posted, it still takes like 3 hours or more to post, bond, like whatever they say they have to do in their system. So I went back with the intentions that, like, I formed a bond with some of the people that, like, I was roomied with and this and that, and they're good people. So I was like, at least I get to go back and give them some faith and sit down, because it was right around dinner time, like, hey, I'm going to have dinner with them and this and that. And my dinner was actually being saved for me, but I think they were saving for me. They didn't know that I was going home. But then, some people started figuring out I was going home, like guards and stuff. And it was like, they didn't want me in there, like, to give other people hope. They processed me and got me out of there in no time. Like, they buzzed me, like, get your stuff, get ready. And I'm like, I don't even get to chill with my people. Like, what's going on here? But, I mean, you don't waste no time. And more things happen on the way out. But I got out and sat in that parking lot for a while, had an interview, and probably smoked, like, you still there?
Yeah, I pulled up a picture. This was our little victory thing as we was following the case. Somebody had texted us the results, and we threw it up right away.
But yeah, the first thing I went and ate was steak. Yeah, it's I ate good. I'm thankful for my people. They took me out to eat, and
awesome, man.
It was quite the ride, man. Like, it's not something I like to do, but at the end of the day, like, if that's the one thing I got locked up for, like, I'm okay with that. Like, I got locked up for a cause.
Well,
a purpose.
And you fought a good fight, man, and that was one of the things I never seen a reaction to a case kind of like we did with this one. And this was very early on. This was right after Dad Talk first started. But you had so many people, they said, oh, Jonathan's beat a judge. And you became that beacon of hope, because if anybody else looking from the outside, knowing that you had this case up against this judge, they're like, this is the David versus Goliath. There's no way he's going to win, but you guys pulled through. And it was so much hope, and everybody wanted to talk to you. And I was
Well,
a little
there's
afraid of that in the beginning. That was one of our first conversations. I said, this is still very much a grieving father here. Yes, he won this case against the judge, but he's still got other work going on. He's still trying to find out what's going on with his son. And I worried about you, man. I worried about you there for a good while.
Yeah, it was a very positive time, but then grieving, like, it affected me negatively. Like, I didn't know, okay, now what's next? Now what are they gonna try? Like this is good for the people, but this is bad for the system. So are they gonna retaliate again? And that's what I hate it, because until this day, I mean, I'm sure you've noticed. I mean, I was confident again once I got out for a minute, and then the depression set in, and then me not knowing, like, people were like, "Oh, this is all across the world." Like, I didn't believe it. Like, I wanted to believe it, but I'm not seeing like enough proof, and like I got people messaging me, but I'm always cautious with that because of things that have happened in the past. So I don't know who's real, who's not, what their intentions are. And then more and more people start reaching out to me their stories, and I take them all personal, and I apologize to anybody I haven't replied to. I've read it and I feel their pain, but I don't know what to say, because I see this problem is still continuing. But like I said, I was scared because I still got to live in this town, and people are rooted with other people, and it's like, are people with me or are they against me? And what is the system going to do next? So not wanting to have hit away for the last year almost, like it affected me. Like, I scared to drive, go out, like, because I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't like living like that. Like, I stopped posting things on my Facebook about it because I'm just like, what are they going to try next? Like, I'm just trying to stick up for people, but there's real evil involved in all this court system stuff and all the money. And it's like, what's next? And it hurt me inside because I don't like being like that. Like, I like to stand up for what I believe in, but it's like, if they did this, I mean, the possibilities are endless of what could be next. So then,
and there's so many emotions attached to that. Again, like Jonathan's saying, he still lives in the same place where all this went down. I mean, you already seen what happened for him speaking out once. Yes, it's been about a year since that trial. It will be here in about 2 months, but he wanted to speak. But I know me and you've had many conversations, and, getting back to the people that write out to us, and, they want their stories. I'm just like you, man. I'll take that story, put it right here on my shoulder. I'll try to help. But sometimes that can be so draining. It's so draining because you feel like, I've got my own, but I want to come out here and help too. And sometimes we don't have the solutions for everybody. What we're doing here, I share my story. That's the whole reason I made Dad Talk. You're here, your story, inspiring people. We're trying to find the solutions. We need more people involved. But guys, I get people that get mad at me sometimes, Jonathan, because I'll get stories all day long, and I just can't read them, man. I can't. It puts me in such a bad mindset, and you want to help them. I know if I read it, I'm going to want to help. And if I do that, I can't get anything else done. And that was one of the things. I know you've reached out to me many times. You feel like you're not doing your job because you're not out here speaking about it or talking about it. You needed that time. And, I've always told you, it's like, I'm never going to pressure you to tell this story ever. You get ready, we'll talk about it. But I can tell when we started talking about doing this a couple of weeks ago, seems like you're in a very good place, man, mentally, and ready to get back at it. I'm just curious. So what is your plans with this moving forward? I know if anybody's out there that thinks they can help with this case, that's what Jonathan's looking for some help.
I don't know. That's the thing I go back and forth with. Like, I want to be hopeful, and it's just I've lost a lot of faith in the system as a whole. Like, I believe in the people and their stories and the kids and what's right and wrong, but
our system's so broken that I just don't know if they're ever going to wake up and actually do something to fix it. So it would maybe draw back. It's like, if I can't help my child and my town, like, how do I help other people? You know, like, this is going on all across the world, and it's devastating, and there's worse things that are happening to children too, and nothing's being done about that either. You know, like, all this pedophile stuff, that should be at the top of the list in the news. You know, like, I mean, anything, any crime against a child, like, I said it in my Facebook post, and I mean it, like, child abuse is like the highest thing next to murder. Like, I don't care. It's innocent children, and any kind of form of child abuse, like, should be taken at the most serious level. And then, you know, that's what really aggravated me with how these courts work. It's like, you're not even giving our kids real judges half the time. Like, you're just throwing them off here and there. So I don't know what the next step is. Like, I mean, for now, it's just, I pray one day I get the answers for my son, but it's like, I know there's a lot of things involved with the system and everything. Is like, I don't know if people are going to allow me to uncover certain things, or if
I believe something's gonna happen for you, my man.
I don't like to get my hopes up, but like I explained, you don't have to go in detail. Like, something happened to me, like, around like July 4th, July 5th, and it was like hitting my lowest point, and then it brought me back, and I'm going to do whatever I can, you know, like, I'm just trying to stay on a positive note, and you know, there's someone that inspired me, and maybe one day I'll get to tell that story. I'm being hopeful about it, but something woke me up and just realized, you know, like, I can't hide away forever, you know, and even if I die for this cause, you know, like, it's worth it to me, because, you know, I want to have a life again. I want to have a wife and a kid and have all that happy stuff again. But, you know, like, it hurts because I'm scared, you know, like, I've learned lessons. I'll tell you that much. I've learned lessons the hard way, and I've stayed single because I ain't going back down that road unless it's 100% wife and mother material. And two is, I don't ever want to walk into those courtrooms again. I don't ever want to have my child used in that way against me. And I will do everything in my power to never be in family court again, because I regret. I got strong regrets, you know, like, just putting the fate of my child in other people's hands when I know as a father what is best for my child. So, like, I'm scared of certain things, and I don't want to be like that, but I see that this problem is just still happening, and, like, I take people's stories to heart, you know, like, whether I reply to it or not, I feel their pain, and I don't want their pain to get to my pain, because, I mean, my friends and family know what my life's been like for the last 2-3 years, and it's not pleasant, you know, and I'm thankful for them that they've stuck with me through the ups and downs. Like, I do have some good people in my life, and I know I'm not easy to deal with, but I don't want parents to feel this, because it doesn't just go away. It doesn't, and it eats at you every day. And I guess I want closure, but at the same token, it's like, I just want to help someone. I really do. Like, I just.
Well, I know one case that really got sparked, and then, you know, it got national coverage, was right down the road from you, the Rob and Brian Adams story. They saw you speaking on Dad Talk, and then that's when Rob started reaching out to me. And when I first started hearing the story, I was like, there's no way this isn't getting media coverage. And I started doing my homework, and I was like, this guy's not joking around. But he told me the whole reason I spoke out and had the courage to do this is because I listened to Jonathan Vanderhagen. And I'm going to tell you, there's been many times, dude, I've wanted to quit Dad Talk. Sometimes the stories, and it feels like the politics that we fight and trying to get reform in family court, I'm just like, I can't do this. And it seems like, you know, Like there's some ESP, I'll get a little text message from Johnny, like, how you doing, man? You know, you need to take yourself a break and stuff like that. It's meant a lot to me, man. It's meant a lot to me, and I'm glad to have you as a friend.
I mean,
You know, I've got those trust issues too. I don't trust that easily, but me and you've had the talks. I mean, we know it, you know, and it's a battle that we're fighting. And I know this story, it touched so many people's hearts, man. Because we, like I said, we talked on many stories here, but when your story came up and I saw it, it resonated with me. And when I made that post saying, when Jonathan gets out of jail, you tell him to get in contact with me. We're going to get him on there. I never knew it was this brotherhood right here, man. This was meant to happen. This was
and
meant.
I apologize. Like I would have liked to do a lot more in the last year, but the depression screwed with me, and I went through a lot of doubts, and I stopped believing in myself, and I just, amongst grieving, I just like, I felt the weight on me that I want to help, but like I don't know if I can help, you know, like and lately, you know, I have more people reach out to me, and just like you just did, like the fact that I have inspired people, like to me that means a lot, because you know, like we all got a purpose on this earth, and maybe, you know, like me and my son did get a pretty bad hand dealt, you know, like maybe there's something positive and good that can come from all this, and that's something that just keeps me going a little bit, you know, like I've been up and down, you know, like I have my confident days, I have my doubtful days, but lately I've been more on the up and up, and I'm thankful for that. And I hope, I pray things change, because I mean, we can't keep doing this. We can't, like, I mean, how many more kids need to be abused or die or be separated from their kids to where enough is enough, you know, like, because I mean, they're just kids. They don't deserve any of this.
No, they do not, and that's why we're fighting the fight. I tell you what, man, we went almost 4 hours on this one, and I know there's probably way more that you would like to add, but the story will get out. I'd like to add, we'll end this. I got two last things, two last questions. One, what does music mean to you, Jonathan? You haven't got to talk about that outlet. I know that's a very passionate thing for you.
Music to me, it's not about fame. It's not about money. It's a feeling, and it's a lifesaver for me. I've used it my whole life. I mean, when I was a kid going through things, that's where I was at, is doing music. Like, it was a good outlet, and I hope one day, like, I can help bring that into more children's lives, like, or make it available for people, is because it's a really important outlet, I feel like, for people, you know, of all ages. Like, music, to me, it's very therapeutic and a good outlet, you know, like, I mean, to me, it's a passion and a feeling, and I'm always going to make music, whether people listen to it or not. Like, I have a lot of music that only certain people have heard, and it's like, I do it for myself, you know, but it's also like the one part of me that keeps me connected to my child, you know, because we did have a bond with music, and I feel like in my heart that it's still there when I play music, and it's one thing that keeps me going. So it's very important.
And Charlie Brown, my favorite video of Killian was him on the ground doing that little dance with the Charlie Brown. I'll probably try to add that into this. And I know one thing that was really big between you and Killian was he wore the shirt "Heroes Never Sleep."
Yeah, it's a Batman saying. I've always been big into Batman since I was a kid, and my son liked it, and I don't know. I just try to incorporate him in everything I do. You know, like
daily. I mean, I hold him still here, but I mean, the things I do for him, like I might have withered away in my depression and I might be hanging on, but I don't want him to ever be forgotten, you know, like I want his spirit up as high, and I just feel like, you know, like he deserves that. He deserved much better. He deserved it all, and I just want, you know, Tim to know that I'm proud of him, and I hope I made him proud. And I know music's the one way, like, I'll forever get to express my feelings for him, and I honestly think anybody going through hard times, you know, they should grasp on the music because it could help them a lot. And
absolutely. Well, brother, thank you again so much, and for this interview. I know that takes a lot to go back to that place, but and I hope it was therapeutic for you. I really do. I mean, sometimes speaking out, as hard as it can be, it's part of the healing process, and I think you did an amazing job. I guess we'll just end with, if there was one thing that you could tell Killian, what would it be?
man, I love him, and I'm proud to be his dad. I mean, I hate that everything that we went through, but there's a part of me that wouldn't change it because, you know, like, maybe that's our story, you know, like, and I feel like he's gonna come back to me in another form of child. I mean, I don't think his spirit's ever gonna go anywhere. I mean, but I just want him to know that I love him and I'm proud of him, and I'm never gonna give up on him. I just can't. I don't have it in me, you know. Like, as much as I hate doing this stuff, like I gotta do it for him. You know that's a parent's job, is to fight for their kid to the last breath. And that's something I'm willing to do. So I would probably thank him, because I don't think he's realized from the day he was conceived up until recently, like, he's saved my life many, many times, and I don't know how to repay him other than to keep fighting for him.
All right, my man. You know, if you ever need anything, I'm just one phone call away.
I appreciate that.
Guys, we hope this story has helped you in some way. If you know somebody that might have experienced something similar, send it to them. It's through our stories and being able to speak out to each other that hopefully we'll get these laws changed. But all right, my man. Love you, brother. And keep your head up and keep doing what you're doing. I think you're on the right track.
Thank you.
God bless. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are fighting for the rights of parents worldwide. If you want to help support our podcast and for us to continue this mission, please join us at patreon.com/dadtalktoday. You will find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, CloutHub, Parler, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, the podcast app, Google, Apple Podcasts. We're a little bit of everywhere. And guys, every time you like and subscribe, you help us continue this mission. Thank you, and we will see you next time.